My managers are making my life a living nightmare at work, as they've practically all turned on me in a way that has isolated me completely and made me the scapegoat of the entire restaurant. Because despite the fact that I've documented and complained about other people treating me like garbage, my managers have chosen to do nothing about it, instead cutting my hours and acting like I'm the problem, putting me in a situation where I seriously don't even know how I'm going to pay my bills, because right now I'm incredibly stressed. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk, the only show where you can probably get a peek into someone else's life and be glad that you don't have a manager like this one, because holy crap, this original poster is going through it, dude. They have a terrible work environment. So seriously, strap in for this one. This is a good one. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk, click the bell to turn on notifications, and let's get started. Okay, for a bit of background, I've been working at a sushi restaurant for a little over a year now, and in that time, I'm the only server that is still there from when I started. Everybody else has quit due to the management, some have left because they moved away, but the majority have left because of two specific managers/owners. I also have ADHD and some anxiety, so sometimes at work I get a little overwhelmed and cranky, but I always do my best and I get my job done with my fellow servers. Now, these two managers have been telling me that I get too angry at work and that this apparently intimidates my coworkers. When I was working with some servers I grew close to in the beginning, they all told me that this wasn't true, that they knew it was just the stress of the job and not anything else. However, the managers have still told me a few times that I'm too angry and that I slam things. One of these managers in the past also yelled at me so much that I started sobbing, and I had to go home an hour from finishing my shift, which is something that had never happened to me before in my past 10 years of restaurant experience. Well, flash forward to a few months ago when all my friends had left, and they had hired a new server that quickly became basically the head server. Her and I got along well to start off, but I don't know if I did something wrong or if it was just that I had been at the job longer than her, but she started speaking to me less and less and started acting passive-aggressive towards me. This hostility grew until it reached a point that I now felt like every time I worked with her, she was pissed off at me. Once during Sunday brunch rush, it was just me and her serving all the tables. She had left a small tray on an empty table after she dropped drinks off at a different table, and I was walking back towards the server station, so out of habit, I picked up the empty tray and I brought it back to the server station. When I turned back around to do a scan of the tables and see what needed done, she had realized that the tray was gone and angrily stomped over to where I was standing. She then slammed her hand down on the stack of trays and aggressively picked one back up, all while glaring directly at me. The dining room is very small, maybe only about 12 tables, and the trays are kept on the sushi bar itself. So she did this right next to a couple tables that had customers dining. I saw their reactions when she did this, and they all looked either shocked or confused or a little bit upset. The manager also saw this, but just stared at me and went back to making sushi. Another time, I was putting the tips from the credit receipts into our card reader, which we have to do it individually because the card reader's old, and it's incredibly tedious, all while another server was putting in an order for a table. This server and I were just making small talk when the head server came over and actually threw a checkbook at the cash drawer in front of us. Well, I just stood there kind of shocked that she actually threw something at me. Then she stomped away again without saying anything. There was another time when we were training a new server. It was a server's second day of working there, and she messed up the flavors of the ice cream that we have, and the head server, after she clocked out, came up to the new server in the server station and just ripped into her. The head server was yelling, "I told you what flavors we have. Why would you tell them the wrong one? You don't listen. You need to listen to me." But the new server just started arguing back, saying, "I'm new. I didn't know what flavors we had. I tried to ask you, but you kept ignoring me." Again, both managers were standing behind the sushi bar just watching this happen, and one of them was even peeking out from behind a kitchen door to watch. There was a table nearby that was also watching and became really upset because the new server was supposed to be helping them with something. Eventually, after a couple more incidents of passive aggression and regular aggression, she came up to me while I was doing the tips and started saying, "I've tried to be calm about this, but you need to stop putting the tips in. It's not a real job." I replied trying to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but when I was trained here," to which she then cuts me off and starts just angrily saying, No, it's not your job. No, that is not a real job." Then later that shift, after I had composed myself, I came up to her and I said, "I really feel like if there was something I was doing wrong that was upsetting you, you should have at least told me sooner." But she said to me, "Yeah, but you shouldn't be doing it. It's not a real job. I spoke to the managers and they said it's not." And honestly, I'm not sure why the managers would say this, as it is something the old head server had trained me to do. So I replied by saying, "Okay, but you should have said something instead of just being annoyed with me all the time. Throwing something at me because you're annoyed is not okay." But she just responded back by saying, "Yeah, but you shouldn't be doing tips at all." And at this point, I just walked away because it was very clear that it was going nowhere. Later, I texted one of the managers explaining everything that I wrote above and how it's been affecting me at work. She was making me uncomfortable and anxious to even show up to the restaurant. Now, what was my manager's response? They said to me, I spoke to her and I told them not to throw things, followed by him telling me to listen to the head server and not do the tips. Mind you, I had this text conversation with my manager at around 9 o'clock that night after I had clocked out of my shift. Around 12:30 in the morning that same night, the head server then sends me a long text message that basically says, I'm really sorry if you felt uncomfortable, but here's what's going on. And then she made a bunch of awful statements about me. She berated every little thing I do at work and said that nobody liked to work with me and that I create an uncomfortable environment. She also said that I'm being prejudiced against her race. And for reference, she and the managers are Korean and I'm white, saying that I don't respect them. Well, ever since, I've been depressed and trying to find a new job. I called off the next shift I was supposed to work with her because I just felt awful. And since then, the managers have cut my hours even more. Before the head server started being upset with me, I was a full-time employee. And now I'm barely getting 15 hours a week and I'm struggling to pay bills. I was thinking about quitting and trying to get unemployment, but I'm not sure how I would qualify since I wouldn't be getting fired or laid off. I really don't want to work at this place anymore for the sake of my mental health, but I won't be able to survive here in California without a new job. What should I do? Okay, holy crap, your manager and this head server suck. Seriously, these people are working against you to try and get you to quit. They want to make your life as miserable as possible to force you out the door. And that is so unfair for you, like you haven't done anything wrong. Because seriously, this lady is trying to find specific things just to be pissed off about. Like this is literally her going out of her way to be like, wow, I don't like you. You're doing the tips. How dare you do that? That's not a real job. But it's like, bro, I've been here longer than you have. And yes, it absolutely is a job. Like it really makes sense that people are quitting, especially in a year of working there. Like that's a red flag in and of itself. And I guarantee you, even the lady that's causing you a hard time, I can see that lady quitting or getting fired as well. Like she's fighting you on stuff when she should really be looking at the managers. Like they probably see her as expendable as soon as you're gone. Because then guess what? They'll have a new scapegoat to run against. And that'll be the lady that's causing you problems. And then the cycle continues, dude. So in my opinion, I think absolutely you should keep looking for another job. And if anything, just know that these people suck and you being there makes their life miserable. They hate the fact that you're there, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would find a lot of joy in that. Like seriously, me just showing up and doing my job is causing you all this heartache? Like screw that and screw you, I don't give a crap. I'm gonna show up and do my job regardless. Oh, you're only giving me 15 hours of work or less? Well, congratulations, I'm gonna be the most chipper and annoyingly positive person in that entire restaurant. I'm gonna make you melt with kindness. I'm going to be the thorn in your butt you cannot get rid of. If you haven't already, I would absolutely document everything these people have said and make sure you get screenshots. Because who knows, if you do get fired or if you do quit, you might still be able to get unemployment or something like that. But either way, these people suck and at least you know that for sure. You know exactly where you stand with them and you know where you're going to be going moving forward. And that is literally getting hired anywhere else because these people suck and you don't deserve this kind of treatment. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for refusing to stay in my room just to make my roommate's girlfriend more comfortable? Because apparently, even though we live together, she's nervous to be around me for literally no reason, despite the fact that we live together and we've been roommates for like 4 months now. Because right now, this is honestly becoming so weird and incredibly personal towards me. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what's currently going on. I'm a 20-year-old male and I live with my friend and his girlfriend, and we've been in this living arrangement for about 4 months. Now, my friend and I have been friends for about 2 years or so, and we met through work. We didn't hang out often, and I'd only met his girlfriend a few times before we moved in together. Well, my friend recently went back to working at his job site instead of from home. And when his girlfriend is home, she always acts weird around me. In fact, she doesn't talk much. One time, I had knocked on their bedroom door to ask if she wanted pizza that I had ordered when my friend was at work, and she acted super scared. Now, I like to hang out in the living room or use our shared space in general, and the other day, my friend had texted me asking if I could just stay in my room the days his girlfriend is home and he's not. But I said to him, no, why would I do that? He then replied that apparently it makes his girlfriend uncomfortable with a guy walking around the house. But I said, it's my house too, like I literally pay rent. He then replied by saying, well, it's not gonna hurt you to stay in your room for a few hours, maybe 3 days a week. But I said, no, it isn't fair for me, and I shouldn't have to. Plus, on top of that, she really should have assumed that this would happen a few times when we moved in together. He then got annoyed and was just like, okay, just do it to make her comfortable. uncomfortable, but I just said no back to him. We hadn't really spoken much ever since then, but yesterday it was just her and I alone for a few hours. I made food in the kitchen and I took a shower. And guess what? She never came out of the room, like at all. Today I had off and I slept a lot, and my friend was off as well, and I guess he noticed what was going on and basically asked me, okay, well, how are you fine with doing this when I'm home? And then he asked me to just think about it. So honestly, am I the jerk here? Like, this seems really weird and I just don't know what to do with this. Okay, bro, I would be out of there so fast. I would never want to live with people like this. I don't care who they are. This is obnoxious. You really mean to tell me this lady's trying to be like, oh, I'm scared of the roommate. I'm afraid of your friend. I don't like him. It's like, dude, if you didn't like this guy, then you probably shouldn't have moved in with him, because this kind of behavior is weird. You either need to get over it or you yourself move out, because this guy literally pays rent. He has every right to use a shared space. Plus, there's never been an incident. Like, I understand being weary and cautious, but to act like there's some kind of like, I don't know, danger in the apartment is just really weird. Plus, it's not fair for the guy in this situation. Why are you just assuming that this crap's going on? And also, why can't she just stay in her room? Why should I be sequestered to like my own space when she's the one with the problem? Like, why is her anxiety my issue suddenly? Like, that's completely unfair. So no, you should not be forced to be like quarantined to your room just because you're a guy. Like, that is incredibly stupid. That's really irrational in my opinion. And I seriously think your friend and the girlfriend are idiots in this situation. And I know if that was me, I would probably find ways to either break the lease and get out of there, or definitely find a way to move out as soon as possible, because there's no way I'm going to live in that environment or under that level of scrutiny for no reason. My honeymoon that I'm having with my wife in Japan is currently a nightmare. In fact, my relationship and my life with my wife has honestly just been on fire since day one. And I'm honestly in a situation where I don't know what to do and I don't know how to move forward. Here's what's happening. Okay, to start things out, my wife and I are 32 and 33 years old, and I've been married to my wife for about a year now, while we've been together for about 5 years. Now, the relationship hasn't always been good. The first 3 years were actually really good. I did notice some serious issues early on, like toxic behavior, poor money management, and the fact that she didn't really know how to live with someone else, but I always thought that we could just work through it. But let me tell you something, the last 2 years have been really difficult. It started with the wedding. We went from having a $40,000 budget all the way up to a $75,000 budget, and yeah, I paid for like 90% of it. I made a lot of financial sacrifices while she kept living her life as usual. The worst moment was 3 months before the wedding when, after everything I had done, she told me she wanted a break, and she said I was too depressed. At that time, my life was basically working from 8 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night most nights, plus one day every weekend. Like, I was heading straight into burnout. I would come home to a messy apartment full of clothing orders while I had not bought anything for myself in a year. There was no food ready, and my partner was often mean to me, as well as planning the wedding without involving me. So yeah, I was depressed. Now, we still went through with the wedding, but I regret it now. And the main issues I have with her are the following. First of all, she grew up as an only child in a very indulgent household where she was treated like a princess. She struggles with hearing the word no and has always had someone cleaning up after her. Sometimes it really feels like she has no basic idea of how to live with someone else. For example, she can knock over an open can of Coca-Cola and actually just leave it there all day without cleaning it. I genuinely don't understand how that's possible. And every day it's the same pattern. She tries on 5 outfits and leaves everything on the couch. She eats breakfast and leaves everything on the table. She comes back from work and drops her clothing and shoes in the middle of the room. And after a shower, there's hair in the drain and makeup everywhere. If she cooks food, then everything stays on the counter, even things that should go back in the fridge. If she brings snacks to bed, the packaging ends up on the floor near the bed and stays there. If I don't clean up for one day, the next day is worse and then worse again. And then the apartment becomes a complete mess very quickly. Secondly, her relationship with money is a serious problem. She comes from a family that didn't have much, even if they still had help at home. Her parents made sacrifices to send her to a private school, but she never really learned how to manage money. For her, if there is money, it needs to get spent. At the same time, she compares herself to wealthier people around her, who in her eyes are traveling all the time and drive expensive cars. She envies that lifestyle and seems to think that she deserves it somehow. Third, I really feel like social media has seriously affected her. She can spend hours on TikTok watching unrealistic content, and it clearly shapes how she sees things. If something's trending there, it matters. If not, then it's not worth it in her eyes. On the other hand, she does does love me. At least I think so. Sometimes I'm not even sure anymore if I'm being honest. She can be caring and make an effort on special occasions like my birthday, and we do have good moments together, but it fluctuates enough where it honestly is confusing. Now, right now we're on our honeymoon in Japan, which I planned entirely, and it has been a disaster so far. She is constantly in a bad mood. She complains when we have to walk, when she doesn't like a restaurant, or when she doesn't have enough time to do what she wants. In 4 days, we've mostly just done shopping for her at a bunch of different like vintage luxury stores. We literally went to the Nintendo and Pokemon shops, we went to Shibuya Sky and one temple, like that's it. But my god, yesterday was the worst. She woke up late and lost the whole morning. Then she insisted on going to a sushi place with a conveyor belt, but when it didn't work out, she got upset again. After that, we went to the Nintendo Center and spent the entire afternoon shopping for her again. She kept getting annoyed because some stores were not as close as she expected, and somehow she blamed that on me. I told her twice during the day that I wasn't enjoying the trip, and instead of trying to understand, she said it was my fault for feeling that way. Later on, we went to an Adidas store where I wanted to look around, but we stayed less than 10 minutes because we were late for her shops. Then at Shibuya Sky, she made me go up and down the escalator 4 times just to get the right pictures. But after the 4th time, when she complained about how I was taking the photos, I just couldn't take it anymore and I just left. And I didn't even get to enjoy the view. Well, back at the hotel, we had a huge argument. I told her I wanted to sleep and talk the next day, but she refused to do so. She insisted on continuing the argument, even though she was angry and becoming visibly aggressive. When I tried to sleep, she just turned on the lights and played something out loud, like on speaker, and it honestly felt like she was trying to push me to my limit. She was also very frustrated to not have gotten her like Instagram photo, and she told me, "Oh, you ruined everything." She accused me of saying things that I never said and promising things I never promised. She said I do nothing for her, even though the entire day, just like the day before, was all about her. But when I pointed that out, she changed the subject and complained that I don't take pictures of her. Now, I checked my phone, and I know for a fact I took a bunch of pictures on her phone, and I had taken like 79 photos that day, mostly of her too, by the way. And yet, when I showed that to her, she just changed the subject again. Well, today I was exhausted, and we missed our trip to Mount Fuji. Yesterday, she said that she probably wouldn't go, but today she blamed me for not waking her up earlier. And this isn't the first time something like this has happened when we traveled. On a previous trip, our flight got canceled because of a strike. I need to be back for work the next day, but she insisted on staying 3 more days on a small island. She literally told me to leave alone while she stayed on the beach without a hotel or without data, not even knowing if her credit card would work. And trust me, there is no way to deal with her when she has those meltdowns. Sometimes I honestly question how she still behaves like a child at 33 years of age. At the same time, we do have good moments and she can be really loving and caring, but her negative side is becoming more and more overwhelming. I feel myself losing respect for her, especially when she spends entire evenings on TikTok or gets upset over things that she sees on social media and wants to recreate. Absolutely everything she sees there becomes important and anything else just doesn't matter. Her lack of basic life skills, her tantrums over small things, the constant blaming, and the way she twists facts during arguments are exhausting. Most of the time when I point out simple facts, she just changes the subject entirely. It honestly feels like a nightmare sometimes. But at the same time, after 5 years, it feels very hard to walk away. I keep trying to fix things, but it really feels like we both think the other person is the problem. And maybe I'm not perfect either. I'm sure she has things she could complain about too. So seriously, what should I do here? Because I really just don't know what to do anymore. Okay, I can only speak for myself here, but holy crap, this sounds miserable. Here you are on your honeymoon in Japan of all places. Like that's a cool destination to go to for a honeymoon, dude. You're supposed to be in love and having a good time and you're supposed to be like excited, but your wife is over here acting like it's the end of the world anytime things don't go her way, while also spinning everything against you at like the drop of a hat. And I gotta be honest, it really seems like she's mistreating you and just being completely unfair and irrational. Like first of all, she can't even clean up after herself. And I don't know about anyone else, but if I spilled soda like on the countertop, my parents would have been like, "You're not moving until that's cleaned up." So what in the world kind of environment did she live in where like that was normal? You could just spill a can of soda and be like, "Oh, I'll get to it later," or not at all. "If anything, mommy and daddy will take care of it." Like, geez Louise, she is acting like a child 90% of the time, even though she is a grown woman. And it also doesn't help that she sees stuff on social media and she's like, "Wow, this is really important. I need to have my Instagram moment too." And it's like, dude, I'm pretty sure like the second or third like picture I took for you was probably enough and it probably fit what you were looking for. It would most likely meet the trend that you're trying to match on Instagram. I don't need to do this a fourth, fifth, and sixth time. Like, that would be so annoying. I would hate everything about that. But the worst part about this, in my opinion, like, this is the thing that would really make me break up with her. It's the fact that she is unable to, like, at all have a serious conversation when she's upset. I can understand needing distance and calming down and, like, trying to collect yourself. But if you're really gonna sit there and be irrational and angry and refuse to listen to anything that your husband's trying to say, regardless of who's right or wrong, like, I don't care about that. If you really can't see logic and reason, then holy crap, I would definitely break up with you. That is my biggest pet peeve in people. I can't stand people who act like that. You're really gonna tell me that your crappy behavior is somehow gonna become my problem? Like, I have to manage your emotions on top of, like, trying to get things done around the house? Not to mention in, I don't know, Japan? We've been to the Pokemon store like 3 times. What do you want, lady? And we've done literally everything you've wanted. And yet still, this is all my fault when it doesn't go right. Like, what is going on right now? This is so stupid. Someone in the comments section said, hey, this is the sunk cost fallacy. Jump ship while you can. And honestly, I kind of see where they're coming from. Like, I know if I was in your shoes, I would definitely get out. Like, I don't care if it's been 5 years. I don't want to spend the rest of my life with that. That literally sounds obnoxious. That sounds like a nightmare. Like, can you imagine having kids with this lady? Like, then you really are shackled down to her. Then you have to deal with this, like, princess syndrome lady who refuses to clean up, who's always gonna blame you, and guess what? She will probably turn your future kids against you as well. Like, that is also gonna be like, wow, I'm getting ganged up on in my own house. Meanwhile, you're working like, what, 12-hour days every single day? Like, dude, you have got to change something here. Because you're not on the verge of burnout, you're in the middle of it, dude. You're on fire and your wife is saying it's your fault. Like, what is happening? So honest to God, like, this is just my opinion, but if I was in your shoes and I had this continued ongoing experience and like life situation, I would start looking to divorce that lady yesterday, bro. I would not stick around. I understand that you love her. I understand that you spent a lot of money on the wedding. And I understand that no matter what you do, it's going to be hard. But in my mind, I would rather cut loose and find literally anybody else than stay with a lady who clearly doesn't appreciate me. And if anything, is just going to throw me under the bus at the nearest convenience for her. Because my friend, that's exactly what you're dealing with. This is not a life that you can live where you're going to end up being happy at the end of the day. If anything, if you do stay, which I wouldn't, you're probably going to be unhappy and very miserable for like the rest of your life. But hey, that's just my opinion, man. You do whatever you want. You know this relationship better than I do, so I can't tell you what to do. But leave a comment down below. Tell me what you would do in this situation. I really want to hear what you have to say. Like, leave a comment and tell me exactly how you would handle this. Because this is a juicy situation, and I'm sure you have a different perspective that you'd like to share. An entitled hotel guest took off with our car keys and refused to bring them back, stating that if we wanted them back, then someone's gonna have to follow them and go and get it, leaving me completely blown away that someone would actually do this to us. Here's what happened. Okay, so we were staying at a hotel in La Jolla, and for reference, this is a very nice hotel with great service. We called down to the valet to get our car brought around from the garage so we could visit my older mother at her nearby residence. Well, when we get down to the valet station, there is no car in sight, and even after waiting, we still have no car. The valets go check and discover that our car is in the garage, but apparently the key is missing. After checking around, they look at the security footage of the valet stand, and they see that a hotel employee had placed the key on a stand by the valet desk. And before valet could get to it and go over to get our car, another hotel guest had just walked up and taken the key. The guest then proceeded to get in their own car and drive off. The hotel contacted the guest by phone and told them that they had taken the wrong key and that they should return with it. Well, the guest responded that they were driving to Oceanside, about 20 miles away, and that they were not going to turn around. So a hotel employee got into a car and started driving after them and asked them to name a spot where they could stop and meet up so that they could turn over the key. Well, the guest responded that they were going to go on to their destination, so the employee had to go there too if they wanted the key back. Meanwhile, we used our backup key to drive our car to visit my mom. When we got back to the hotel, our key had been recovered, and the hotel had sent a good bottle of wine to our room to apologize for the incident, and the staff was embarrassed and very apologetic. But here's the thing, I don't blame the staff. The staff is great. They went above and beyond anything I would ever expect. The idiot who grabbed a random key without bothering to check if it was the right one, and then refused to alter their plan at all to get it returned, that's the thoughtless jerk that we blame. And if you're wondering how they drove off with the wrong key, when the valets bring the car down from the garage, they leave the key in the car at the valet station, usually either above the sun visor or in a cup holder. So the impatient idiot's key was already in their car waiting for them when they stole our key, because of course they were too important to wait another 10 seconds to ask somebody or to even go check for themselves, which really makes this whole situation incredibly pointless. Man, imagine being so entitled that you not only take the wrong key, but you don't even bother taking it back back to the valet station. And instead you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna drive away. Like if I knew I took someone's like car key by accident, I would turn around immediately. I'd be like, dude, I'm so sorry. This is awful. Let me bring it back to you. Or something like that. Don't just drive off. So yeah, these people were entitled jerks because they could have easily turned around and fixed this entire situation. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not letting my brother's girlfriend be in our wedding family photo? As my brother is constantly dating someone new every 2 months, and I simply didn't want a stranger in our photos that he's gonna break up with in just a few weeks. Here's what's happening. I'm a 28-year-old male and I recently got married. Everything went well overall, but there was a bit of drama involving my brother and his current girlfriend. Basically, my brother has a new girlfriend like every month. I'm not exaggerating. He never had a relationship that lasted longer than 2 to 3 months, and we've all just kind of gotten used to it. It's even like a family joke to an extent. So when it came time to take our official family wedding photos, I got him to the side and I asked him politely if his girlfriend could sit out of that specific photo. And mind you, this is another girlfriend who he had been with for about 2 months. We included her in the casual shots, but for the formal family portrait that's going to be framed and hung up in our home, I just didn't want to include someone who we probably won't ever see again in a month or so in our family picture that will stay with us forever. Well, when I said that, he got really upset and said that I was being disrespectful to him and his relationship. He said I'm acting like his relationships don't matter. My dad then came and convinced him for a moment to take the photo without her, but they left early after taking the photo, and now he's barely talking to any of us. Worst thing is that my mom is on his side and said I should have included her and that I can't know if their relationship is gonna last or not. And now both my brother and my mom are mad at me. I don't feel like I did anything wrong, and I've got nothing against her personally. I mean, she seems nice, but I know my brother. I don't think he takes relationships seriously. He had more girlfriends last year than I had in my entire lifetime, and honestly at this point I'm not sure if I'm the jerk or not. Dude, there's no way you're the jerk. This is so stupid. Your brother dates girls all the time and he's constantly breaking up and hooking up again, and he's trying to be like, oh come on, let my new girlfriend be in the photo. Meanwhile, next week they're probably gonna break up. Like the clock's ticking on this relationship. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and the fact that your mom and brother are mad at you is incredibly dumb. My entitled mom wants to eat our wedding cake top as some kind of like family event. So my wife and I are planning to perform a cake heist where we sneak in there, get our cake unannounced, and then get out of there before she could do anything to it. Because right now I've completely run out of options, and at this point I don't know what else to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so we're coming up on our first wedding anniversary, and it falls on a Monday of this year. My mom approached me recently and told me that we could cut into our wedding cake top with the whole family the day before our anniversary because she wants to be part of our anniversary celebration and the weekend is more convenient for everyone. Now, I was planning to cut the cake with my wife only on our actual anniversary. The cake top is in my mom's freezer, and she has a full-size freezer in her garage, and we only have a small apartment-size half freezer. Now, of course, I doubt the cake will be as good as the day we had it, but it's more so for the symbolism of our anniversary. For my parents' anniversaries, we've never been a part of it. They go on trips without us, and they've never asked us to join them, so I'm a bit frustrated at this double standard. My wife and I would not mind sharing the cake with them after our anniversary, but from talking with my mom, it sounds like she wants us to make it into a family thing, and that just doesn't seem normal to me. My mom also caused a lot of unnecessary drama and stress surrounding our wedding last year, in that she wanted to forego hair and makeup that my wife had arranged for, and we would cover the cost of, mind you, and would laugh condescendingly at us when we tried to express our viewpoints on why these things were important to us. She also tried to invite a bunch of people, even though she was not paying for anything. So from that experience leading up to our wedding, I learned that she lacks respect for myself as an adult, my wife, and our marriage. My wife and I thought the best way to resolve this is to perform a cake heist, as I don't want to risk giving my mom a heads up and allowing something to happen. I'm not sure if she would eat it directly out of spite, but I also wouldn't put it past her. So seriously, what's everyone's thought on the cake heist itself? I plan on just going over there unannounced to secure the cake, because right now I seriously am completely out of options. Okay, first of all, I want to say that your mom absolutely would eat that cake out of spite. She would throw it away, she would sabotage it. Like the second you say no, we're doing our own thing, is the second she's gonna be like, oops, I threw it away by accident. So pulling off a cake heist, in my opinion, is the best plan possible. I would take that cake and run, dude. She absolutely is gonna try and pull something if you don't listen to her. And it's so weird that she's trying to somehow make this all about her. Like she's trying to be like, oh, this is an anniversary and we're gonna make this a family thing. When in reality, it seems like she just wants to take away from your big day. And that sounds really annoying. Like that really sounds super frustrating to me. So hopefully you have a successful heist, because this sounds like a possible nightmare waiting to happen. Because I know if I was in this situation, situation, this is exactly what I would do. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not letting my friend eat off my plate, even though she paid for the dinner? Because now she's treating me really differently and my friends are saying that I was being dramatic. And at this point, I'm not sure if I made a mistake. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so this happened last weekend and I'm still kind of annoyed about it. I'm a 22-year-old female and I went out to eat with my best friend who we will call Amber. We've been close since high school and we usually split stuff or take turns paying, but this time she offered to treat me because I helped her with a job resume, which was really sweet. Anyways, we go to this cute diner, I order pancakes with strawberries and whipped cream, which is my favorite, and she gets an omelet. When the food came, she immediately reaches over with her fork and goes, "Oh, let me try a bite." But I literally just said to her, "No, can you not?" Because one, I was starving, and two, I have a thing about people picking at my food, even friends. Like, at least ask me first. She kind of laughed it off, but then she said to me, "Girl, I paid for this meal. I'm basically renting those pancakes." But I told her that paying doesn't mean that she gets bites of my food, and now she's kind of being weird about it, saying I was rude and ungrateful. I said I didn't ask her to pay, and if she only did it to sneak forkfuls of my plate, then she can chill next time. Our other friends said that I was being dramatic, and it's not that big of a deal to share food. But like for me, it's not about the food, it's the boundary. So am I the jerk for saying no even though she paid for the food I was about to eat? Because right now, I'm not sure if I made a mistake. Okay, I think I can definitely see where the original poster's coming from. If she had asked first and said, "Hey, can I try a piece of the pancake?" or something like that, then I probably would have been like, "Yeah, sure, take a bite." But it's the fact that she reached over with her fork and is like, "Okay, let me get some of that right now." Like, that's really weird and super entitled, especially for her to say like, "Oh yeah, I'm renting those pancakes." It's like, no, you're not. You paid for it so that I could eat it. If you wanted pancakes, why not get it for yourself? Like, this is kind of weird. So no, in this scenario, I don't think you're the jerk, and I think what you're saying completely makes sense. A stranger I was sharing a room with in the hospital demands that I give her my wheelchair so that she can run some errands. And even though I told her that this is my personal wheelchair and I own it, she still decided to give me a weird attitude, leaving me completely baffled at the entire scenario. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been in the hospital for just over 2 weeks and my legs are almost completely paralyzed. So I can't even stand, let alone walk. And this is a known thing on the shared ward I'm in. But today I'm highly likely to be discharged. And simultaneously, the woman in the bed next to me has day leave so she can run and get some errands. She has her leg in a cast so she can't exactly walk herself, but obviously there are options and accommodations which the hospital can provide. Her and I have had a few pleasant conversations and get along pretty well. I mean, you sort of have to when you're in this forced close quarters. But what she said genuinely baffled me. She asked me if she could borrow my wheelchair for her day out, rather than use a hospital-provided one. Now, bear in mind that this wheelchair is my personal chair, and without it, I'm completely immobile, and I would be stuck on this hospital bed. She knows this information, but she still had the gall to get upset when I said no. Even if I wasn't getting discharged today, it's still my personal wheelchair, fitted to my specifications, and everything is set how I need it. This wheelchair is my legs, so she is essentially asking to take my legs. She had such a grimace on her face when I said no, and hasn't said a word to me ever since then, not even looked in my direction. I'm just so baffled as to why she would feel entitled to my personal wheelchair. It's like, lady, you're in a hospital. Use one of the others, but don't try to take mine. Yeah, that is a very weird scenario. I can't believe someone would be like, "Hey, let me borrow your wheelchair." Because the next thing you know, she's gonna come back and be like, "Oh, this was always mine." And then you're out of a wheelchair and you're like, "Wait a second, what's going on here?" Then it's this big thing and it's like, dude, I do not want to deal with this. So no, if she really wants a wheelchair, then guess what? Use one of the ones the hospital can provide. It really seems like she only wants yours because it's probably a lot better than the hospital provided ones. And that, in my opinion, is not a good enough reason for her to take it, because who knows if she will ever give it back. Am I the jerk for talking to a guy in such a way that literally shut down all of his questions about my job? Because everybody I talk to makes me feel like the bad guy. And at this point, I'm not sure if I made a mistake. Here's what's going on. I'm a 27-year-old female and I work at a summer day camp. Now, for a bit of background information, the summer camp I work at is connected to a gym, so the gym guests and our campers have to share the same bathroom in both the men's and women's restrooms. We have 2 stalls reserved for just the kids to use and have a sign posted in front of those stalls that they are literally just for the kids. The summer camp staff is primarily women, and we have very few male staff. We have one male site director, but directors are always busy and they're not always available. Now, part of my job at the summer camp is to listen and watch out for kids so that they can be safe while they use the bathroom. This is to make sure that the kids aren't playing or being inappropriate with each other, and that adults aren't approaching or talking to them in the restrooms. Whenever I'm watching over the boys in the restroom, I'm always in the doorway of the restroom. I never go all the way in unless I need to. Now, male guests will see me and be slightly startled because there's a woman in the men's restroom, but they don't care because they already know about the summer camp. Now, I was doing the same thing I do every single day by standing in the doorway of the restroom, telling my boys to occasionally hurry up so I can send the next kids in when all of a sudden a tall, balding, middle-aged white guy stops in front of the locker room door and stares at me for a minute before he starts talking to me. And trust me, this guy is incredibly weird. He says to me, "Excuse me, ma'am, do you know there are children in here?" I say to him that yes, I know that. And he says to me, "Do you know there's adult men here too?" When he questioned me again, I said, "Yes, I do know." He then said to me, "Well, I don't think it's appropriate for a woman to be in the men's restroom." I said to him, "Well, I understand that, sir, but it's just part of my job." He then started to question me and say, "Well, what's your job? I don't understand why you're in here." So I explained to him, "I work at the summer camp. My job is to make sure the kids don't go into the stalls or let adults talk to them." He then literally asked to speak to a manager. And when I explained to him that this is my job, he literally circled back and said, "Well, why are you in the restroom?" But I just responded back by saying, "This is my job." To which he said, "Oh, but that's inappropriate that you're in here." I then said to him again, "Sir, this is my job. I need to make sure that children don't go into the same stalls or let adults talk to them." He then said to me, "Okay, but you're standing and hanging out in the men's restroom, having a whole conversation with me." But then I just interrupted him and I said, "Sir, you started talking to me first." Now, mind you, I was calm and did not move from my spot in the doorway at all during this whole interaction. But after I said that, he took a pause and stomped away into the connecting locker room. I stayed in the doorway until my kids finished their business. I then told my director and a few other camp counselors about the whole interaction, and they were completely on my side. My director even told the gym's front desk receptionist about what happened to me with my description, and they said they'd keep an eye out for him in the future. Now, even though almost everyone was on my side, when I told a few relatives about it, they said that I shouldn't have escalated the situation, and I should have just left quickly to get a male staff or my director. Now, I don't think I'm the jerk, but those relatives are making me second guess myself. And at this point, I'm honestly just not sure if I made a mistake. Now, you definitely did not make a mistake. You are not the jerk here. That guy was being super creepy and weird. First of all, you were literally looking out for the kids. You were taking care of them. You were making sure they were not getting lost or hurt or anything like that. And you literally were just doing your job. And then this guy comes up and is like, what are you doing here? This doesn't make any sense. And despite the fact that you tried to explain it to him, he still just was refusing to understand. So personally, I think your relatives are idiots for being like, you escalated the situation. Because dude, what did you do? You sat there and calmly just explained why you were standing there. You weren't causing a scene, this guy was. Because if anyone's a jerk in this scenario, it is definitely that weird guy. Because his interrogation of you was completely uncalled for. My former job refuses to give me the raise that I absolutely deserve, saying that I'm not working enough overtime all because I'm leaving my job on time. But eventually, I found a job that was paying me 60% more than what this company was paying me, and I'm now way happier at this job than I've ever been in my life. Here's what happened. A couple years ago, I was working for a corporation as an analyst. Company culture was that working insane overtime was bragged about and praised, when in reality, these people are working overtime because they do so much meaningless work that could be automated in a dozen different ways. I've always been very flexible with my time because my management has always been flexible with me, such as needing to take a long lunch or leave early for an appointment, stuff like that. And I've always been very forthcoming about this. However, if I don't have to work late, I'm not doing it. I finish all of my responsibilities during normal work hours and I wrap things up neatly at the end of the day to have a smooth start to the next week. Now, I had been in this position for a little over a year and I went into it knowing that I was being severely underpaid, and I'm very confident in the output of my work. I've always got great marks on performance reviews and constant praise for what I was doing. So I felt deserving of a raise and I requested it. And the amount I asked for was 20%, which is large, I understand. And I debated that for a while because I knew I was not getting the full amount. But this is how severely I was underpaid. And I knew that 20% was the cap by our company's policies. Well, I was immediately rejected any raise because I come into the office at 8 and I leave right at 5 o'clock, while everyone else stays late, and that I never offered help others out when they're overloaded, which basically means that they work late while I leave on time. The first part of this supposed feedback actually came from someone else who worked on our floor, and I never even worked with this guy in my life. My manager was all about perception and not really about the reality of things, which I understand is general corporate culture, but that doesn't mean it's not BS. So I think to myself, okay, I can change that. Around 4:30 every single day, I would ping my manager asking if there was anything she needed help with to finish out the day, and I documented all of this in a Word document. So day in and day out, there wasn't a single thing she ever asked me to do in addition to the work I was already doing. I would even test things out and stay until about 5:30 some days, just to see who else is working late, and very seldomly has anyone ever been in the office like 5 minutes past when we're supposed to leave. Eventually, my manager said I don't need to be checking in with her at the end of every single day. I said okay, no problem, but I just want to let you know that you can always reach out if you need help with something, because I can't be expected to know your workload if you don't communicate. Our relationship stayed very strained after that. I was desperate to leave the company company, especially once the raise was fully rejected after receiving above average performance review for being in the job for only a year. Finally, I got another offer about 5 months later that was a 60% raise. My prior company then offered me the same 60% raise and a promotion, but I took the new company's offer and I've never been happier in my life. Oh man, good for you for going with the other company. I would have done the same thing. Any company that's gonna be like, oh wait, you're leaving? Oh, just kidding. We'll give you a 60% raise now. Here's a new promotion as well. Please stick around. It's like, dude, where were you when I was like, all I want is a 20% raise. I just want to get paid what I'm worth. Like seriously, give me the amount I need. Like you already were getting severely underpaid and these people are trying to be like, oh, you're not staying late long enough. Sorry, but you're not gonna get paid more. And it's like, dude, who is staying late? Like literally nobody is. So good for you for going in a different direction because this job does not sound very fun. My dad's friend got revenge on their jerk neighbor after this neighbor stole a parking spot that was snow plowed out specifically for an elderly father's car, resulting in this idiot neighbor getting their car blocked in for the entire winter. Here's what happened. Okay, if anyone is familiar with Chicago in the winter, there's this thing called dibs. This is where you clear the snow from the street directly in front of your house and put something in the spot, like a lawn chair or a couch or something like that, just so you can keep someone else from parking in it. Now, this was a very heavy snow, with an Arctic blast forecast to come in the late evening. My dad's friend cleared the snow in front of the house so his elderly father could park. He was gone just a few minutes to get his dibs item, but when he returned, he found his neighbor had just parked in the spot. He then told this neighbor that the spot was for his dad, but the neighbor just laughed and said, oh, you didn't have any dibs, too bad. Well, this is where things get really interesting. Later that night, my dad's buddy came out and built a ridge of snow around the car, about a third of the way up to the door. Since it was wet and heavy snow, it packed really well. He packed it up nice and tight and created a barrier around the car. He then grabbed his hose and filled the area under this neighbor's car, knowing that the Arctic blast would take care of the rest. The next morning, he was woken up by the neighbor pounding on his door, screaming about their car. The water had frozen completely solid underneath the car, and we're talking through the wheels, partially up the doors, and into the lower part of the engine. The car was unable to be entered and was completely immobilized. Well, the neighbor called the cops. My dad's friend explained the situation and heard both sides of it. At the end of it, the cops told the neighbor that what he did was wrong and he got what he deserved. Now, as much as it was an inconvenience for my dad's friend, that car sat there for the next several months until it thawed out. The neighbor even called several tow companies, but because of the ice, nobody would touch it. Obviously, the neighbor never did that again, and also, for some unknown reason, the neighbor never talked to my dad's friend ever again either. And also, this happened about 40 years ago, where most people weren't so happy back then as they are today. Okay, I love that last little bit where they're like, yeah, it was like 40 years ago, so it definitely didn't happen like in today's day and age, because I can absolutely see somebody not only suing you over this, but also the cops being like, okay, you gotta clean this up or else you're going to jail or something like that. But also, as someone who has lived in like a really snowy area before, this is absolutely a thing. If you dig out a spot in front of your house, it's yours and you absolutely deserve every right to it. Like if I took the time to clear out a spot so I can park my car and someone stole that spot, dude, I would lose my mind. And in Chicago, no less, where the winters are brutal, like, dude, there's no way I would let that go. So I love this revenge, like I really do. It's something that you will never see today, but it absolutely was deserved. Like that cop hit the nail on the head, dude. There's no way this guy didn't deserve that. And the fact that he laughed in this guy's face and said, too bad, so sad, for me makes this entire scenario so much better. My psycho coworker shows up to my house just to verify whether or not I was actually home sick from the hospital. But after I reported them and my manager for trying to write me up, this psycho coworker ends up getting fired. Here's how it all went down. Okay, to start things out, my husband was very sick. We had to take him to the ER after he passed out from dehydration from an intestinal bug that he'd been dealing with for a few days. On the way, he calls his job to let them know, and when we get to the ER, we park in the garage, and we get a little ticket that the ER validates for you. He's brought back and immediately given fluids and meds, taken back for a CT scan, etc. Well, we find out later that a coworker who was pissy that she was going to be shorthanded took it upon herself to somehow find our address and later drive over to our apartment to check and see if my husband really is sick. She then sees our upstairs neighbor, who vaguely resembles my husband. They're both 6'3", they have light brown hair, and they have similar builds. Although this guy's like 15 years younger though and has an infant with him, whereas our kids are in their late 20s, early 30s. She then goes back to work and tells her boss that we lied about being sick, as she says that she saw him walking around outside perfectly fine. The next morning, the boss calls my husband and lets him know he's going to be written up for calling out under false pretense and for causing staffing issues. And after pressing him for information, he tells us about what the coworker did. My husband then tells the boss that firstly, we have proof that we were in the ER at the time the coworker said she saw him, and secondly, that he's filling an HR complaint out out on both the coworker and the manager, as there isn't any rule about why anyone can call out, and why on earth is the coworker coming to our house to spy on us? For reference, where we live, management isn't allowed to inquire about your health, nor are they allowed to let you tell them about your health issues. Well, my manager then starts getting defensive and states if we can give him proof, then he'll excuse it. But my husband just says, "Oh, you'll get your proof," and then hangs up. He then immediately calls human resources and lets them know exactly what happened. We then provide them the time-stamped parking ticket and part of the discharge paperwork from the ER showing what time we arrived and left. Well, the next week an email is sent out notifying all employees and management about the law concerning sick time, and also a separate notification that employees are not to be following, spying on, or otherwise contacting other employees outside of the office regarding work, time off, or literally anything. My husband was then called into a meeting with the manager, as well as the department head and the female employee. The manager and the employee were both absolutely roasted by the department head. The only thing the employee had to say was that the person she saw looked like my husband, and she was just very angry about the situation. And the manager's excuse was that the female employee had been there a long time, so he trusted her when she told him that. When asked about how she got our address, we come to find out that our manager lets her in his computer regularly, and she has been privy to other employees' private information for some time. The department head said my husband was free to go with his profound apologies, and eventually we later found out the employee was fired and the manager was demoted and moved to a different department. And honestly, for the both of them, this is absolutely deserved. Oh my gosh, this pisses me off so bad, dude. There's no way I would be okay with this. If I had one of my coworkers spying on me and showing up to my house, let alone having my address at all, dude, I would lose my mind. They're literally trying to be like, "Oh, you're faking it. You're not actually sick." Meanwhile, you probably still have like the hospital band on your wrist, dude. Like, what's going on right now? How can anyone think this is some kind of like rational way of thinking? Because I'm pretty sure all of us have worked with like that kind of coworker where they're like, "Oh my God, someone's calling out again. I can't stand that." Where they've worked at a job way too long and somehow it's everybody else's fault when things don't go as planned. Like, dude, I cannot stand people who act like this. But thankfully karma came in clutch and you didn't get written up, because that would have been like infuriating. There's no way I would have been okay with that. And I just love that the employee got fired and the manager got demoted, because what they did was completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Angry customers are always coming back to our restaurant, despite the fact that they always, every single time, have a negative experience. And I'm seriously left wondering why that is, because it simply just doesn't make any sense. Here's what's happening. So I had a coworker call out the same day at the food hall I work at recently, and I came in to cover him and arrived about 45 minutes after opening time. A customer was waiting during that period and was annoyed, saying that he was waiting for a long time. I told him my coworker called out and I was there to cover him, and the guy just didn't seem to care, other than the fact that he had to wait. He started barking out his order before I even clocked in, and even turned the TVs on. I then told him to give me one moment to get things up and running first, and even then he still didn't look happy to hear that. He then starts asking what time we open, and I tell him 11 o'clock in the morning unless someone calls out, then it's whenever I arrive. And when I said that, he proceeds to scowl. I tell him I'm ready, and he then belts out an order without giving me any time to put in each item. I then ask him to please give me a second to put the items in. Well, of course he doesn't tip, no surprise there, but I bring the food out anyways, and he's already scanning it to ask for more stuff. He'll say stuff like, "Is there any limes in here?" And I'll say to him, "They are right there, sir," and I point to the visible limes in the dish. "Well, can you go get some more?" I say to him, "Sure, no problem." I then go back and I grab some more. Well, when I show up, he says, "Let me get some more, buddy." And I just say to him, "Yeah, you got it, buddy." I mean, this guy is a real class act. The funny thing is that this guy has returned multiple times, and each time I can see that annoyed expression on his face as he relives the inconvenience of that first day. Every time he orders, he just seems pissed off and makes the entire ordering process a game, constantly saying, "What? What do you mean? What's going on?" Like, dude, if you're so mad about it, why do you keep coming back? There is 15 other stalls to order from, but this guy's obsessed. We must be that good, I guess. So why do irate customers that have such poor experiences seem to love coming back to said establishment? Do they enjoy the pain? Do they think they have some kind of power over you? I'm waiting for the moment that they step out of line so I can absolutely 86 them, because at this point, I'm honestly getting pretty frustrated. Dude, I have wondered the exact same thing. Seriously, some people are always so pissed off that it just doesn't make any sense. You would think if they really didn't like a place and they didn't like the customer service or anything involved, they would be like, "Okay, I'm gonna go somewhere else because this is not serving me well." But I think you've touched on something really important. It kind of seems like they get off on like this power and like this angst over you, as if this is the one place they can go to where they can kind of like like boss somebody around and be like, oh yeah, this is what I want. And they can somehow get away with it because for once, they're the one in charge. Like, I'm convinced people are actually like that because that is just so prevalent, it's not even funny. So yeah, I'm just as baffled as you are. If I didn't like a place, there's no way I would go back. So the fact that you deal with this person constantly, in my opinion, is just super weird. An entitled Karen demands that I hand over a jacket that I won at a raffle, all because it was a boy's jacket and that me, being a girl, should not be allowed to wear it, resulting in one of the most confusing situations I've ever been in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened many years ago, but it honestly still annoys me to this day. When I was in high school, I dated a guy whose parents were in a motorcycle gang. Now, not an actual gang, but it was more of like a group of people that rode together, drank together, and did philanthropic events in the community, and we would frequent their clubhouse for dinners and events. One night, we attended a fundraising event for a fellow member whose wife had cancer. They were doing a ticket raffle, so I bought one for $10. I've never won anything in my life, so I figured I was just making a small donation. After the dinner and the speeches were done, they started the raffle, and one prize was a very nice children's Harley-Davidson leather jacket. It was worth at least $200 plus and was part of a limited release. I mean, this was a super cool jacket. Well, they called my number and I won it. I was obviously excited and collected my prize once the raffle was done. And spoiler, I still own the jacket and I wear it to this day. The jacket was a child size large, and I'm a very petite person, and I was even smaller at the age of 15, but the child's large fit perfectly. I put it on and I wore it for the remainder of the night, and I got lots of compliments, and the teenage version of me was absolutely hyped. Later, while I'm alone, a woman suddenly approaches me, and it's here that she point blank asks me if she can buy the jacket for her son. In fact, she offers me $50 for it. I decline as it is a very expensive jacket and I want it, and I definitely want it. Well, she then gets a confused look on her face and says, but it's for boys. It's a boy's jacket. It's not for teenage girls. Mind you, I'm currently wearing the jacket, and I again tell her that I'm not selling it. I will be keeping it, and that I don't care that it's technically a boy's jacket. She again asks to buy the jacket, that her son will wear it, because she refuses to let go and just simply says, it's for boys. I'm now starting to get uncomfortable as she has me cornered by a wall and won't drop the conversation. My boyfriend's mom notices that I'm distressed and walks over, asking what's going on. But this woman just repeats herself like a broken record. She wants to buy the expensive jacket for $50 because it's for boys, and a teenage girl shouldn't be wearing it. My boyfriend's mom then gets mad at her and tells her that the jacket looks great on me and that I will be keeping it and that she needs to walk away. The entitled mom then looks me dead in the eyes and says, you are a very rude young lady and you're wrong for wearing a boy's jacket. Now at this point, I was upset and I wanted to leave. My boyfriend's mom tells us to go sit in the car and that she will be out shortly. We're alone for maybe like 20 minutes before she comes back, where she states that it's been handled and that I won't need to worry about that woman bothering me ever again. The rude lady was the wife of a new member and he had not been initiated into the gang yet. My boyfriend's mom complained to the president and he told the prospective member that he and his wife were no longer welcome to join. They were protective of me, and bothering me over a jacket was completely unacceptable. And you know what? I never saw that woman ever again. I still own the jacket and I wear it to this day. I don't ride anymore, but it's warm and it's waterproof. And yes, it's technically a boy's item of clothing, but seriously, who cares? I will never understand why this woman was so bothered by it. Now, unfortunately, my boyfriend and his mom turned out to be awful pieces of garbage, and they traumatized me terribly, and I'm in therapy to this day for the torment they put me through. But I will say, I am forever grateful that she and the president stepped in and banned that crazy lady from their club. They didn't tolerate that behavior for a second. It's too bad they had no problem with actual members mistreating their kids, but hey, they do have some standards, and I got to keep the jacket in the end, even if those standards are super corrupt. Oh man, this story really zigged when I thought it was gonna zag. Like, holy crap, that is not what I expected. I'm glad you have the jacket, but I'm also like really glad you got away from your boyfriend and his mom. Like, the original poster didn't go into too much more detail about it, but from the sounds of it, it seems like it was not a good situation, and they're kind of glad they got away from it. So yeah, good for you that you got to keep the jacket, but especially that you got away from those people, because they do not sound like winners in the slightest. An entitled Karen tries to kick me out of my seat at a cafe, stating that this is her favorite spot and she deserves to sit there since she shops here all the time. And I'm honestly just still blown away by this level of entitlement, because this really was a crazy situation. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was at my favorite little cafe. I had my laptop out, my headphones in, and I was enjoying a quiet corner seat by the window. I'd been there for maybe 30 minutes, sipping my drink and working, when this woman walks up and just stands there next to me staring at me. I take off one earbud and I say hi, and she goes, "You've been here for a while. I always sit here." And I'm just like, what is going on right now? I said to her, okay, but I'm using it right now. She then rolls her eyes and says to me, "I'm friends with the owner and this is my spot that she gives me because I come here every single day." Well, I said to her, if it's your spot, then maybe you should have gotten here earlier. And when I said that, this definitely did not go over well. She then started muttering about how people with laptops ruin cafes, and then she stormed over to get a staff member. The barista comes over, clearly exhausted with this idiot, and says, "Ma'am, it's first come, first serve, you know that." When the barista said that, the Karen looked so offended, like she had just been betrayed by her own team. She glared at me, mumbled something about manners, and stormed off to the other side of the cafe like a child. So seriously, am I crazy, or are some people just so entitled these days? Like, no one owns a cafe seat, and just because you loiter at this cafe every single day doesn't mean that you magically get assigned seating. Holy crap, that is some serious entitlement. It's always funny meeting someone like this that really thinks they're some kind of like VIP just because they shop somewhere all the time. Like, sure, you're probably there a lot, you love their products, you support the business, whatever. But that doesn't magically mean that you get some kind of like assigned seat. That's so stupid. Not to mention going up to another random customer and being like, "You need to get out of my way." Like, dude, that's super cringy behavior and there is no reason to act like that. So I love the way you handle this. I think you did it perfectly because you are 100% in the right. A prior tenant to a property I'm renting keeps showing up at my house, banging on my door, demanding their mail. And simply because I'm afraid of this person and I don't know what their intentions are, I've called the police to try and mitigate this situation, leaving me completely gobsmacked of what I should do next. Here's what's going on. So I just moved into a new rental home about a month ago. Well, ever since I did, I've been getting a significant amount of junk mail and bills addressed to the prior tenant. I did the right thing by writing "return to sender, not at this address" on each envelope, and I put them in the mailbox with a flag up, but the mail just simply keeps coming in. Well, about 2 weeks ago, a woman drove aggressively into my driveway honking her horn. I work from home and my office window faces the road, and I keep the blinds open, so I clearly saw a lady in her car waving at me with a huge cast on her wrist. She wouldn't get out, so for safety, I started recording and I hid from view. And it's like, sorry, but I just don't trust anybody. But after some time, she eventually left. But the next day, the same thing happens. She pulled in, honked her horn, waved, I hid again, and then she screamed, "I want my mail." And it's like, sorry, I don't know you. I'm a female alone in a new area. This could easily just be a trap of some kind. When she left, I noticed a package I was expecting was missing. I called the non-emergency dispatch and I told them what happened. I described her and the car and that my package was gone. They then said that they would send for an officer. About 20 minutes later, a cop and the lady showed up at my house. This is a small town after all, so they found her pretty quickly. The officer acted as a neutral party while she explained that she uses informed delivery, saw my name, found me on Facebook, where she then messaged me some nonsense request to get her mail, but fortunately it was marked as spam, so I never saw it. So I told her any mail that was not mine is marked and returned. I even taped a note on my door saying the same thing. She then claimed that she didn't take a package and that it still hasn't shown up yet. But I told her that she scared me. But she said that she only honked her horn because she was scared of my dog. You know, my 10-pound chihuahua. Things eventually calmed down and they left. Now, as a side note, this is a huge privacy violation. She still has informed delivery here and found me on Facebook, which makes me very uncomfortable. I contacted the post office and requested they stop her informed delivery access for this address. I thought it was over after the police visit, but yesterday she came back in a different vehicle. She pulled in aggressively, she honked her horn, she rang the doorbell like 3 times, and even banged on the door. But I did not answer and I just hid again. And thankfully she left quickly after that. So seriously, am I the jerk for ignoring her, not giving her the mail, not responding to her on Facebook, and for calling the police? I'm not collecting her junk mail like a free P.O. box. I also found out that she was evicted, had lots of people at the house, and treated the place horribly. I saw the condition when I toured it and it was absolutely filthy. What should I do? Okay, first off, if this was me, I would not only be changing the locks if you haven't already, but I would also be putting up cameras literally everywhere. We're talking like a doorbell camera, as well as a camera facing the driveway, as well as every other entrance you might have on the property. It also wouldn't hurt to be like, okay, from now on, I'm gonna get all my stuff via P.O. box, because I guarantee you this idiot absolutely stole your package. And honestly, this situation is so weird, because why not just forward all your mail to your new address, lady? Why hassle the new tenant of a property you got evicted from, instead of just going to the post office and doing the work necessary? This would take what, maybe an hour to take care of? Like, why are you being so insane? And honestly, when it comes to you hiding, I think I would have done the exact same thing. I am not about to open that door for anybody I don't know, especially in a new area. Like, this lady's acting insane. She's banging on your door, ringing the doorbell, trying to like intimidate you into getting the mail for her, and then she finds you on Facebook and says, "Get my mail for me, do it." It's like, dude, what are you talking about? I am not doing that. Leave me alone. Stay out of my life. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. Like, you did not do anything wrong. And hopefully she never comes back, because this is some insane behavior. My entitled ex-husband thought that I owed him my entire income for the next 5 years simply because we were married while I was going through college. And I've honestly never been more happy to get away from an awful marriage because this guy was a complete psychopath. Here's what happened. Okay, so this was already years ago when we first began our divorce proceedings. It was this awful, controlling, very bad marriage. But I was in university when we met, taking courses to get into my now career. I worked through most of my degree, so I was able to pay for myself and my tuition. The last year of my degree, it became overwhelming to work at the same time, so my ex told me I should quit my job and that he would support us. And I thought to myself, okay, this is great. I quit, I used my savings to help with my side of the bills, I did all the household chores, and I made sure that I held up my end of things. I then graduate and I get multiple job offers and I start working right away. Well, our marriage fell apart about 7 months after I started. He had multiple affairs, plus the awful mistreatment, and after everything else, I just left and went no contact. Our first time seeing each other was about 15 months later at a mediation meeting with our respective lawyers, and it only took about 15 minutes to begin shouting and cursing at me, and then him demanding all of my income. He said to me, "She would be nowhere without me. I gave her her career. I only helped with the expectation that I would be reaping the benefits of her salary for the foreseeable future." Well, basically both lawyers were dumbfounded, and his scrambled to get him to stop talking. I still chuckle to myself when I think about that meeting. As terrifying as it was at the time, it is absolutely hilarious to think about now. Yeah, your ex-husband is a psychopath. That is an insane precedent to set. He literally tried to be like, "Ooh, I made you. I deserve all your money." And it's like, dude, this is not how this works at all. You cannot possibly be serious right now. So from the sounds of it, especially with that statement alone, you definitely ended up with a better deal by getting away from this guy, because what he's demanding out of you is absolutely not normal. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story, because we would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for refusing to give up my seat for a woman on a crowded train simply because I was tired and I needed to sit down? Because now my roommate is saying I'm in the wrong for not getting up, and at this point I'm not sure if I made a mistake. Here's how it went down. I'm a 28-year-old male and I take the train from work every day. Now I have a physically demanding job. I'm on my feet for 8 to 10 hours a day, lifting and moving heavy stuff with no real breaks. So by the end of the day, I am absolutely drained. But yesterday, I got very lucky and I got a seat, which rarely happens. About 2 stops in, a woman, maybe in her late 20s to early 30s, gets on. She looked around, saw there were no seats, and then stood right in front of me. And I could tell she was expecting me to stand up and offer mine, but I simply didn't. She kept glaring at me kind of dramatically, like sighing and looking around, clearly hoping that I'd offer. Eventually, she directly asked me, "Would you mind letting me sit down?" I said to her, "I'm sorry, I've had a long day. I need to rest my legs." When I said that, she looked shocked and just said, "Wow." Then she stood there for the rest of the ride, giving me dirty looks. A guy across from me kind of smirked, and later someone mumbled, "Chivalry is dead," as they got off. I told my roommate about it, and she said I was a jerk and that it's basic manners to offer women seats, especially if they're standing and I'm younger and able-bodied. But I don't see why my gender should mean I have to give up my comfort. If the roles were reversed, no one would expect a woman to stand for a tired man. So am I the jerk for not giving up my seat just because I'm a guy and she was a woman? Because right now I'm honestly not sure. Okay, honestly, I do not think you're the jerk at all. And instead, I think the lady in the story is super entitled. The fact that she was trying to be like, can I sit down? You need to stand. And then gave you this weird attitude and like aggressive body language all because you said, "No, I'm really tired." Like, that is super messed up and not okay. If this was someone who had a disability or who was pregnant or something like that, like only then would I be like, "Oh, of course, please sit down, absolutely." But it's really disingenuous for her to be like, you need to like let me sit there because I'm a woman. Like, that's weird to me and that absolutely makes no sense. She is just as able-bodied as the guy sitting down, but I'm willing to bet based on the description that she didn't have a 10-hour workday of lifting and moving stuff all day. It's not selfish to sit there and be like, "I'm tired, I need to rest my legs." You have every right to sit there just like anybody else. And it's so funny to me that someone was like, "Wow, chivalry is dead." But then again, they're the same people not standing up and giving her their seat. Like, if you really feel that way, then put your money where your mouth is. Give up your seat and let her sit down. Like, if that's really how you feel, then prove me wrong. It's always people in the peanut gallery who are like, "Wow, that person is so bad." Meanwhile, they'll never step up and do it themselves and instead just sit there and judge you. I can't stand people who act like that. It is so infuriating. At least back up what you're trying to claim. Don't just virtue signal. Like, come on. So no, I definitely don't think you're the jerk, and I think this entire situation is very silly. My toxic job tries to set me up and get me fired for something so ridiculous that it honestly blew my mind. So I decided to get some revenge by quite literally taking everybody down with me, as I figured if I was getting fired, then I was going to make sure everyone else got fired as well, resulting in me flipping the table in this company, resulting in 20 people getting fired instead of me. Okay, here's how I did it. I want to start off by saying that this situation was a complete accident. I definitely did not plan it, but in the end, it still kind of works out for me. A few years ago, I was working at a popular petrol station on a popular freeway. Unfortunately, one afternoon, I'd had a freak accident reaching for my drink bottle, and I ended up slipping a disc between my L5 and S1. As a side note, it was beyond anything I'd ever experienced. Well, after many months of physical therapy, I was approved to return for minimal hours. I understand that it was a complete freak accident, and not at one point did I blame it on the company, but it happened at work, which probably saved me years of spinal surgeries. Anyways, one day back at work during a 4-hour shift, I'd had a sore throat that day. Now, normally we are allowed to grab a coffee once a shift, so I asked the second in command, who is someone I'll call Clifford for the sake of the story, if it was possible to have a cup of slushy instead to soothe my throat. Clifford responded by saying, "Yeah, that's cool, just put it in a coffee cup," which is exactly what I did, following his guidance. And you know what? This did the trick. It really did help my throat. The next morning at approximately 7 o'clock in the morning, I awoke to an official email from this company stating that I'm being suspended without pay due to a serious breach of conduct. Now, obviously, I'm baffled and pretty upset. I'm aware that I'm back on reduced hours, being watched, etc. So I reply and we set up a meeting in person 2 days later. Now, it was me, my support person, the second in command, the store manager, and 2 people from human resources, which I'm sure they had to make a massive drive for. We then sit down in an adjacent building, and I'm honestly still baffled as to what's going on. The store manager said, "Hi, so we've called you here today for an offense that we can terminate you for immediately." And to be honest, at this point, I was absolutely crapping myself. What on earth could I have possibly done? So I asked them to please elaborate on what's happening. Well, they then begin with a very patronizing question, which was a massive first red flag. They said to me, "Do you understand the definition of stealing?" Well, being confused, I looked at them and I said, "Well, I would like to think so." At this point, the store manager begins. He said to me, "Monday you drank a slushie out of a coffee cup, and that is a breach and considered stealing." At this point, I was relieved because the second in command was in the meeting, and I reacted by saying, "Oh, well, this is all a misunderstanding." I asked Clifford before I touched anything. I thought the same thing, so I double-checked and I got permission. Well, this is where things really went south because this guy literally looks at me across the table and says, "That never happened." And when I heard that, I knew that I was in some serious trouble because this guy was actually trying to throw me under the bus. The silence was palpable, and my jaw was in my lap. My eyes are darting back and forth, thinking there's no way I'm being set up like this. Hundreds of scenarios ran through my head just then. Confusion, shock, anger, and then just acceptance. My back was messed up. I was trying my best to recover, and I'm now being accused of ripping a petrol station off by about 3 cents worth of slushy so the managers could get a bonus from getting rid of me. But this was my favorite part. Everything just kind of melted away. The anger, the injustice of everything, like all of it was just gone. I let out a big sigh and I just started smiling. I looked directly at the store manager who, unfortunately for him, underestimated my observation skills. Because a week prior, mind you, there were plenty of other offenses. I saw him purposefully knock a pack of Oreos off the shelf, followed by him saying, "Oh, I guess I have to write that off for my morning meeting." And at the time, I didn't even think about it because who cares? But you know what? Now I definitely do. So I said, "Okay, but if I'm confused, let me clarify something." I then stared down the store manager and I laid out what happened. And I asked him and human resources if that would be considered stealing, all without breaking eye contact. Well, when I said that, I witnessed his soul leave his body. I sensed human resources doing a slow pause and turn, but I quickly moved on and I decided I'm taking everybody down. Next, I went to the second in command, namely Clifford, who I also had nothing against, but hey, here we are. He was freshly married, he had a 2-year-old and a baby on the way, and he was also screwing around with another cashier. Let's call her Tracy. They were literally doing that in the bathroom during work, if you know what I mean. And again, I just mind my own business, like I don't really care, even though I really do think that he's a piece of garbage for doing that. I looked at him, then the manager, and then human resources, and I asked if Clifford was a reliable source of information, seeing as he's doing the dirty in the bathroom, if you know what I mean, and just straight up cheating on his wife. Now, by this point, human resources needed a defibrillator. Then I threw in that half the staff are smoking the herb on their break, and I'm not trying to send hate their way, but it was more to throw shade that my manager is useless. And while I was at it, I truly only liked 2 people that worked there from a very busy 24-hour store. I went on for the next 30 minutes about every single branch I had seen in the last week, and I let them know I could definitely help them out with more information. And at that point, the meeting was ended abruptly, as you can probably imagine. 3 days later, and I was still offended, but I had gathered myself and I thought, you know what, screw them. I'm young, I'll move on. Human resources then called me and asked me to come in, and I had absolutely prepared myself to be fired, and I was already mentally checked out, recognizing that there's no way I could go back and play nice with people that threw me under the bus. But when I sat down, human human resources is groveling. There's probably some sort of court case I could have followed, but again, I was young and ready to burn the bridge, and it was then that they offered me Clifford's job. Now, if you're wondering what happened to Clifford, they told me that he and that girl he was spending quality time with have quit, and this is because Clifford's wife was trying to pull her through the safety barrier every time she went on shift. Also, they fired 18 people for breaches after going through a lot of footage. This included staff eating expired food and all this other stuff. I then asked them to give me some time to think about my situation. I walked back over to the main store, and there's my manager in tears, packing his stuff up in the office into a cardboard box like some kind of movie scene. And at this point, I simply couldn't help myself. I had a spring in my step, and I asked him, "Oh, why are you crying? What's wrong?" And he told me through his tears he's going on leave and all this other garbage. Well, to make a long story short, I ended up quitting 3 days later, and it was honestly the best decision I've ever made in my life. Holy crap, this is some fantastic revenge, like seriously. It's also pretty obvious that Clifford was absolutely trying to throw you under the bus and just get rid of you for some stupid reason. Like, this guy literally had it out for you, and he's like, "Oh, that never happened," as if this is some kind of like perfect crime to get you eliminated. Meanwhile, he's playing Twister in the bathroom with a cashier. Like, dude, are you kidding me right now? Stealing a slushie is not nearly as bad as doing that on the clock. So honestly, I think you did the right thing by being like, okay, everybody's getting canceled. If I'm going down, I'm taking this entire ship with me. Because screw that, these people are literally trying to like take you down for nothing. We're talking a cup full of slushie for a sore throat. That is hardly stealing on the clock. Like, what these people are doing is actually stealing. This is them trying to split hairs and be like, I hope he stays quiet so we can fire him. Meanwhile, you get your main manager's job and everybody else gets fired. It's like, dude, this is like the ultimate karma. So good for you for getting out of that job and moving on, but also taking down all these people, because if they're gonna screw around, then they absolutely deserve to find out. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My idiot toxic boss wrote me up for being 6 minutes late, while also humiliating me in front of the entire office for not being on time. But I decided to get some revenge by literally working a loophole that allowed me to show up whenever I wanted, since the punishment for showing up late was the same across the board, regardless of how late you might actually be. Here's what happened. Okay, I've always been the kind of person to arrive at work early. I hate the stress of running late, so I always allow more than enough travel time on my commute to avoid lateness. I always stop for a coffee first thing on my morning commute to work. It was a half-hour drive to work on the highway, so I'd like to sip my coffee and listen to tunes to relax before work. Even though it's only a half-hour commute, I would leave for work an hour before my start time, just in case there were any unexpected delays. One particular day, there's a massive jam on the highway. Now, normally, I get to work 30 minutes early because of the extra travel time, but this traffic jam was bad enough that it still made me 6 minutes late for work. Well, my supervisor then starts giving me crap for coming in late but still having a coffee in my hand, publicly calling me out in front of the other employees. Hey everyone, look at this guy. His morning coffee is more important than him respecting his coworkers. But no amount of me saying, hey, I bought the coffee before I knew there was a traffic jam would get him to stop bothering me. He then wrote me up for being late. Now, my company had a policy that less than 5 minutes late is okay, but more than 5 minutes late means a potential write-up. It doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes or 30 seconds or 2 hours late. The punishment was all the same. However, supervisors were given leeway on this and were encouraged not to penalize people unless they were consistently late. I was almost never late. I almost always was early, but my supervisor decided to punish me anyways. So fast forward a couple of weeks and another delay happens, and it looks like I'm going to arrive at work about 15 minutes late. So knowing that I'm going to get written up no matter what, I pulled off the highway, I found a nice little restaurant, and I had a leisurely 2-hour breakfast. I then showed up about 2.5 hours late, got the same write-up I would have gotten if I had been 15 minutes late, but at least I got to relax and eat some bacon. I still showed up at work early 99% of the time, but every now and then there might be a delay that would mean I'd be about 6 minutes late, or even 10 or 15 minutes late. Rather than take the penalties of a lousy couple of minutes, each time I'd extend the late time a couple of hours and just have a nice relaxing breakfast. And honestly, I don't regret it for a second. Man, this is hilarious to me for so many reasons. But most of all, it's the fact that the supervisor really decided to act like that. They seriously tried to be like, oh hey, look at this person who's always on time, being late for the first time. Wow, isn't this embarrassing? It's like, dude, if you want someone to no longer care, just keep doing that. Because you just took one of your workers and said, okay, let me take away all your motivation. And that's why they're taking 2-hour breaks to go to breakfast. Like, why show up on time and get made fun of when you get to show up a few hours late and get the same write-up? I honestly don't blame the original poster, and if I was in their shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. And entitled Karen keeps putting her hands on my wheelchair against my consent, causing a lot of pain in my back every time she does it. Thanks guys got so bad that I eventually turned around and I gave her a piece of my mind, leaving her completely speechless as she fumbled for what to say. Here's how I did it. Okay, to start things out, I was in the customs line in my wheelchair. Suddenly, my chair shifts, sending a bolt of pain through my back. I then realized the woman behind me was grabbing my wheelchair and has shifted her full weight onto my chair handle. As she was a bigger person, it twisted the entire frame for a second. I assumed she had grabbed my chair by accident, perhaps to prevent a fall, so I just didn't say anything. But I did roll forward as soon as I could. Well, a few minutes later, it happened again, with the same gigantic bolt of pain. So I turned around to look at the woman, and she was looking away and acting like nothing had happened. I said to her, "Excuse me, please stop grabbing my wheelchair, it hurts my back." She then scoffed at me and said, "It's a long line and my feet hurt." But I told her, "This is my wheelchair. It's an extension of my body. Don't touch it again." Now, everything was fine for maybe about 10 minutes, but then she did it a third time. But this time, I rolled around and I let her have it. I said to her, "Every time you do that, it causes me pain. Would it be okay for me to grab you to hold myself up? Don't touch me again." At this point, she was trying to justify her actions, but I was not having it. She actually seemed to think that there was nothing wrong with what she did. My husband was about 10 feet ahead of me because I hit the bathroom before the lineup, and when he heard, he came running back and got between us. A staff member then came over, and they ended up getting her a chair to use to hold herself up. Not to sit in, mind you, but just to hold herself up. I mean, if her feet actually hurt that bad, she would have sat down in the chair. And honestly, I was so furious. Like, what was her problem? I'm sorry your feet hurt, but I'm in a wheelchair, lady. I'm not in it because my feet are sore. My legs don't work, you raving idiot. Every time she moved her chair forward, she would make these theatrical groans and moans, something she didn't do before. My husband then got behind me to put some distance between us, which was good because I really wanted to smack her, which is something that would have absolutely gotten me arrested. Dude, that's so weird. Like, why would you touch anybody's wheelchair? Especially in like a public situation. It's like, dude, you do not know them, don't touch their property. And if your feet are hurting and you're like, "Oh, I can't really stand that much," then lean against the wall, dude, or like call up a staff member like you should have done. Go take care of yourself instead of making this everybody else's problem. So yeah, you did the right thing by telling this lady off because it sounds like she was not getting the picture. And the fact that she was trying to justify any of this is just so insane to me. My mom is obsessed with me doing gymnastics, but I plan on quitting so that I could become a doctor. And now my mom is literally having a mental breakdown over this, and I seriously am not sure what to do now. Here's what's going on. Okay, I started gymnastics when I was 2 years old. It's my mother's obsession as she is a former member of the Soviet Union where it is very popular. I would say that was probably the thing that she was the most excited about since I was born. She started stretching me when I was very young. I was running, doing resistance training, literally anything that might make me better at it than anyone else. And you know what? I'm quite good at it. I don't want to sound full of myself, but I have won a lot of things. But I can't say that I enjoy it very much. It isn't something that I'd say I'd willingly do for fun, but it is sort of the only thing my mother does. She was one of those parents that would stay through the entire practice. It was really embarrassing and only stopped when I was maybe like 16 years old. She spent all her time stitching my leotards, taking me to practices, competitions, buying hair things. Her whole life is in gymnastics, and I just don't really think she has any other hobbies. I turned 18 recently and I also finished school, which I'm really happy about. I mean, it's really boring. I will do my military service and then I want to go to university. I want to be a doctor. I have had a lot of bone and muscle issues, and I would like to be able to help people with that. Plus, being able to literally replace someone's joint in a way is really cool, and I want to do things like that. I'm really excited about all of it, and it's what I've always wanted to do. But my mother is kind of having a breakdown. I'm not a mental health expert, but she is always crying and yelling at me and just being weird. She says that she doesn't want me to leave, that I'm wasting all that she's done for me and it's going to be worthless, that I'm not talented enough at anything else, I don't appreciate her, that I hate her, and that I'm going to get fat and all these other things. And she's always crying. It's really embarrassing and weird. And she was never like this before. So now I don't really know what to do. Obviously, I don't want to continue with gymnastics, but I feel kind of guilty about making her so distressed. And it's kind of hard to say no to her. I know what I want, but when she's so unhappy with it, it's kind of hard. What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, the way she's acting is super manipulative, and in my opinion, just doesn't sound healthy at all. Like seriously, she's sitting there trying to be like, "You're gonna be worthless. You have no other talent besides this." And like, I don't think that's true at all, and in fact, she's only talking about herself. Like, she really is projecting her issues onto you as if this is somehow your responsibility. But like, dude, you're 18, you're trying to move on with your life. And it sounds like gymnastics is not your life, and that's completely fine. You can absolutely do other things. Your mom can't just demand that you keep doing gymnastics just because she likes it. You did it from the age of 2 all the way until 18. But now you want to be a doctor, and that's a noble profession. That's a really good thing to pursue, and the fact that your mom's trying to be like, "Oh, you're never gonna make it. and instead almost like desperately wants you to do gymnastics instead. Like, dude, she's the one being weird and unreasonable, not you. You're literally just trying to move on with your life and she's trying to hold you back. So yeah, this is such a ridiculous thing to be upset about, and in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would start making a plan about how to move forward without her interfering. Because today it starts with her yelling at you, but then tomorrow it's her like sabotaging opportunities for you. And based on what you described, I can absolutely see that happening. My entitled neighbors demand that I hand over my parking spot to their grandfather, as they feel that the grandfather deserves it way more than me, leaving me no choice but to shut down these entitled idiots once and for all. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I got home and somebody was parking in my spot. It is a garage attached to the apartment complex where I live, and it's a place where you can buy and own a spot, and the garage is accessible only to tenants, but there is no placard on your spot. I mean, we mostly just know each other. So I blocked the person in and I left a note. My neighbors know my car, and I am only blocking 2 other cars from leaving, and I did send them a message directly. If it's a quick visit or something like that, I totally get it. Well, in about 4 to 5 hours, someone is knocking on my door, and this is a neighbor I'm seeing for the first time. He is angry, cussing, and waving his hands. I am apparently blocking his father's car from leaving, and he will call the cops. And I'm just like, cool, I'm happy with this arrangement, go ahead and call them. And then I just close the door. And an important fact is that when I opened the front door, I had a very prominent camera facing at whoever's in my doorway. It recorded with the sound on as well, and I'm just gonna claim I did not feel safe and show them the recording. In another 15 minutes, his wife is knocking on the door, now with a completely different tone of voice. She just asked me to move so her father-in-law can leave. So I grab my keys and I go there to move. And the whole family's waiting for me, with my greetings not being returned. The grandpa leaves and I start backing into my spot. Now, I thought I was done, right? Well, no. At that point, he jumps in front of me, not letting me park. I then got out and I asked what the problem is. But apparently, Grandpa is coming back. He only went to pick something up. Grandpa is disabled, even though he has no car sticker or anything visible to show that, mind you. And they say that he can't park in their spot. He can't get out well or even fit there. And instead, they say that my spot is wider due to the entrance of the maintenance room being next to it, so it's great for him. Now, again, that was an easy solution. I like being a good neighbor, and while the grandpa is visiting, I suggested I can park in his spot and the grandpa can use mine. I mean, I don't mind. But no, this isn't good enough. He parks his car there, so where am I supposed to park? I can't park it on the street. So I said, no, I'm not parking on the street, you can. The nearest street parking is like 10 minutes away on foot. He then proceeds to give me a bunch of excuses. He works hard, he's tired, he has family to take care of, he can't walk for 10 minutes, his father's very disabled, his wife has spine and back issues, his son is allergic to the sun or something like that, his hamster has asthma probably. But I just stood there and let him finish his speech, and I went to turn off the car. I was parked halfway in, which was good enough. I mean, I was blocking only one other car, and I just went on my way. In the meantime, I've posted this on something like the HOA message group, and one sweet lady got back to me. They are her new tenants, and she already has taken care of the situation, which honestly should not have been a situation in the first place. Wow, imagine being so entitled that you not only take someone's spot that they pay for, but you also try to inconvenience the person who literally is paying for the spot. I mean, they came up with every guilt trip answer you could possibly think of, but if they really cared about their grandfather, they would be like, okay, park on the street and then we'll pick you up and bring you in. Like, why is that not the solution for these people? They instead want you to park outside while both taking your spot and not giving you anywhere else to park. So yeah, these people suck, they're absolute idiots, and the fact that they tried to pull this is completely unacceptable. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for getting a teacher fired after he nearly shoved me to the ground? Because right now people are saying I'm at fault for him leaving the school, and I seriously am not sure if I made a mistake. Here's what's going on. Okay, for a bit of backstory, I'm a 14-year-old male and I have a medical condition that affects my balance and coordination. Just standing or walking takes effort, and if someone shoves me, I immediately lose balance and fall. And in this case, my friend, who we will call Alan, was behind me and caught me, but if he had not been there, I would have fallen straight on my head. Now, here's what happened. It was a random Friday in September and we were going on a field trip. Nothing about the trip itself is important, but me and Alan were walking over to where everyone else was lining up to get on the buses. We joined our homeroom class line and it looked like the buses were delayed, so we were just standing around talking. Well, suddenly I feel a tap on my shoulder. I turn around and before I can even react, Mr. James, a teacher at our school, full force shoves me backwards. Again, thank God that Alan was there to catch me or I would have been seriously hurt. Then Mr. James yells, "Get in line," even though I was already in line. Now that was bad enough, but what happened next was way worse. He walked 2 kids down the line and slammed his fist into the shoulder of another student, someone with mental challenges and serious heart conditions who had just had major surgery a few months earlier. I was in total shock. I didn't say anything in the moment because I was still trying to process what had just happened to me, and then I saw him do that. The field trip went as planned, but the entire time, Alan and I were trying to figure out what to do. I knew that I needed to report it, not just for me, but especially for the other kid. So once we got back to school, I found the vice principal, and I went to her office to explain everything I remembered, who was there, what happened, etc. Later on, she called my parents into a meeting that I wasn't present for, but about 2 weeks after that, Mr. James left the country suddenly for a family emergency. There is a theory that he may have been deported, but I don't know if that's true. Anyways, a few days later, some guy came up to me and called me a jerk for getting Mr. James fired. So seriously, am I at fault for getting Mr. James in trouble and possibly getting him fired? Because right now, I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Okay, first off, you did the right thing by reporting this guy because it sounds like Mr. James is a piece of garbage. Seriously, anyone putting their hands on students like that and hitting them is completely inappropriate, especially when it comes to him pushing you full force. What was that guy thinking? He's a grown adult pushing a teenager. That's not okay. You can't do that to someone. So no, you're definitely not the jerk and you absolutely did the right thing. My toxic boss refuses to give me the raise I absolutely am entitled to, challenging me instead to see if I can find a job elsewhere at that rate. So I decide to get some revenge by doing exactly that, finding a new and better job that's actually paying me my worth. That leaves my boss in a scramble to try and keep me around. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I spent a few years at this company. The pay there is not competitive and we all get a measly 3% raise each year, nothing even close to inflation levels. I had been in a starter position and still studying on the side, so I agreed with my boss already a couple years ago that I would get a promotion once I graduated. Well, last September I graduated and I asked for said promotion. I had looked over the workers' union salary statistics and the median wage would be around 18% of a bump for me. I didn't expect to get that much because besides them being incredibly cheap, the economy was bad and they had just downsized 15% of the staff in July. Luckily, I had got myself into a strong position of being one of the only ones left with some kind of unique skills. So I survived the downsizing. Anyhow, I show my boss a copy of the statistics and I ask for the median. But when I did this, my boss scoffs at me and proceeds to fight as hard as he can to justify lowballing me. He says so many things to me that are just so baffling. He said to me, "Oh, come on, you're rich, bro." And he said that about my salary. And it's no, dude, I'm really struggling in this economy. If I give you more, then you'll just spend more. But it's not your concern what I do with my well-deserved money. He then said to me, "No one at that level makes that much here," and that the statistics apparently must be wrong. I later went around the office to find colleagues in that level, and the first coworker that I asked said basically that they earn exactly what I asked for. He then brought up some concerns about my communication, petty things like me not replying to a colleague's email for 3 days, which by the way, it was 3 days during which I was off-site to give a course somewhere. But my favorite thing he said was the following: "You can go look for other jobs to see how much others are offering. You'll see that it's not going to be any better." He lingered on my salary adjustments until December, negotiating with human resources, and then finally offers me 11%, which is around what I actually expected. But this does come with a catch. Next year, I would not get the usual 3% salary adjustment like everybody else. At first, I was stunned, but I said, you know what? Deal, let's go for it. You see, I had taken his advice, or rather called his bluff, and was already getting quite far in interviews. Come January, I landed an offer from the top company in our field. Think something like Google or Apple, but in my industry. And they were offering me what would have been about a 35% bump. I hit my boss with the news and he promptly panics. He says that they want me to stay and that they need me and that my performance and development have been great and all this other garbage. But apparently they can't match the offer because according to him, not even top management makes that much. Now, I obviously didn't believe him, but I said, I understand it's not fair that I earn more than everyone else, but just do your best. He then runs to the top boss office and somehow within 30 minutes, they magically found the budget for a 30% raise, which for me is perfect. I now had the leverage to negotiate an even better offer for my future boss, because after all, I had already made up my mind that I was going to leave a long time ago. Dude, I love this so much. Absolutely, this is the way you should handle this. It's so funny dealing with toxic bosses who treat you like this. They think that for some reason you're like enslaved to them and you can't ask for anything higher. And the second you do find something better, they're like, oh, wait a second, we like you. Your performance is off the charts. We really enjoy having you around. And it's like, okay, well, if you enjoy having me around and you think I'm a good member of the team, then give me a higher pay. That's how you show it. Words mean nothing. You saying, oh, good job there, Billy, that's not going to pay my bills, but getting the increase I'm entitled to absolutely does. But regardless, good for you for knowing that you're still going to leave that company. There is no future there in my opinion, and I think leaving is the best option for you. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My parents are desperate to get rid of a tenant who is not paying their rent. So I worked through some legal loopholes to make sure this guy is out the door in a timely fashion, shutting him and his awful attitude down in the process. Here's how I did it. Okay, in the late 70s, my parents bought too much house for too much money, and the place had a basement tenant. My parents said that the rent from the basement will cover the mortgage, but the tenant wasn't paying rent, and after a few months, my parents missed a mortgage payment. The tenant was not even in the place most days. He had another place close to work, and he just used my mother's place as a weekend party crash pad. I tried talking to him, but he really had a bad attitude. My father tried to evict the man, but was defeated by the paperwork. By the time my mother had asked for my help, they were absolutely desperate. They had a mortgage to pay, and they needed the guy gone before the bank came knocking. Now, the courthouse had a law library and nice people at the desk, and with their help, I served and filed some forms, but the tenant didn't care. He just laughed and said I should tell it to the judge. When the court date finally came, the tenant was there looking smug, as if the law weren't on my side. And you know what? I soon learned why. I watched case after case get adjourned. First time up is what the judge would say, and that would be that. And then the case would be delayed for like another 3 months. But the tenant's smugness worked against him. The judge did not like him one bit, and ended up giving him the heave-ho, ordering him as evicted effective immediately. I wanted to celebrate, but the tenant was smiling as he walked out of court, and that caused me serious concern. And this is where an old paralegal helped me out. A judgment's just a piece of paper, he told me. You'll still need the sheriff to get him out. I've been clutching my court order like a trophy, but the paralegal's words deflated me. I said to him, well, can the sheriff come right away? But the paralegal laughed at me, telling me about rights and deposits, about sheriff's fees and delays. I then said, well, is there any other way around that? I mean, I needed help. I was only 17 at the time, and my legal loophole antenna had not grown yet. The paralegal told me that there's no exceptions, adding that unless the man abandoned the place, I would need the sheriff. So I said to him, well, thanks for the loophole. And the paralegal just looked at me like I was nuts. 3 days later, the tenant knocked on our door in a rage because his key to his apartment did not work. But I told him that we found the place abandoned, which was technically almost true, sort of. It had been unoccupied for a few days, and when I entered purely to do a wellness check, the place had a decidedly unoccupied feel. I felt obliged to call it into the police just to report it and try to make a record of it. Abandoned residential unit, and the landlord is moving contents to storage. Abandoned, the tenant said. Where's my stuff? Now, the nice lady at the courthouse library had not been very impressed with my eviction loophole, but she helped me draft a release. The lady said, you're going to need one, after admonishing me for coloring outside the lines and making me promise not to pull a stunt like that ever again. I said to the tenant that they need to sign here, trading the release for the storage company's address. The tenant then called me from the storage place an hour later, telling me what a jerk I was, that I had stuck him with a big storage fee. But I just said to him, look, if you don't pay the storage fee, they're gonna say that you abandoned the unit, and you don't want to do that. You'll lose all rights if you abandon a place. And after that, I hung up the phone because I knew I got that guy out of our place. Wow, this is awesome. This is really cool. Like the original poster says, they did this when they were 17 years old. There's no way I would be able to do that when I'm 17. Like, this guy is absolutely a future lawyer in the works. And I love the fact that you did everything right. You played the game, and this guy absolutely did not have a leg to stand on. And based on his attitude and the way he was treating you and your family, this really does feel like karma working its magic. My aunt demands that I turn off every light whenever I leave the room. So I decide to maliciously comply, resulting in my aunt sitting in the dark on more than one occasion. Here's what happened. Back when I was in high school, I lived with an extremely frugal aunt while my parents were abroad. She had this obsession with saving on the electricity bill. And it's like, fair enough, but she took it to the extreme. One day she caught me walking out of the kitchen and scolded me for leaving the ceiling light on, even though I was going back in less than a minute. But she said she didn't care if I was gone for 30 seconds. When you leave a room, you turn off every single light. And I said, okay, got it. So I started turning off lights whenever I leave a room, and soon I pretty much got used to it. Later that week, she was cooking in the kitchen, and I was helping her grab ingredients from the pantry, which was technically a separate little room connected to the kitchen. I stepped into the pantry, grabbed the oil, walked out, and turned off every single kitchen light as I exited the room. And when I did that, she shrieked mid-stir like she had gone blind. What are you doing? I'm still here. I said to her, oh, I thought you weren't. You said turn off every light when I leave a room, and my muscle memory is already getting used to it. But you know what? It didn't stop there. Anytime we were in the living room and I got up to use the bathroom, I'd leave her in pitch black darkness. Once she was watching TV and I just clicked off the power bar on my way out. It took about 4 days of bumping into furniture before she said, okay, maybe just use common sense. Now, I still turned the bathroom light off every time she used it though, because I wasn't in the room after all. And it took a while before my muscle memory returned to normal, but thankfully it did annoy her in the process. Yeah, it's super weird to be like, you need to turn off every light all the time. Anytime you leave the room, you gotta turn off that light. And it's like, yeah, I get that, but if you really want to be crazy about it, then let's get crazy. Let's live in the dark, basically. Like, what is going on right now? now. So yeah, I love the way you handled this. This really was a good way of maliciously complying, and you did it in a roundabout way, like you didn't even mean to do this, which in my opinion makes this all the funnier. Did I overreact for not clapping when my brother's girlfriend revealed my baby name for my unborn child? Because right now I'm still incredibly upset and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old female and I'm 21 weeks pregnant with my first child. We've kept the name a secret. My husband and I agreed on the name Ivy early on and have just been referring to her as the baby to the family. Last weekend, my mom threw a gender reveal party and invited my extended family and my younger brother's girlfriend. And for reference, my younger brother and his girlfriend have been dating for 5 months. After the "it's a girl" part, my mom starts bringing out cupcakes and my brother's girlfriend loudly says, "Well, I guess we can finally call her Ivy now." When she said this, everybody clapped, but I just stood there awkwardly. I never told her. I had told my mom in confidence because she was making a quilt with initials. I then pulled my mom aside and she just brushed it off. As she said, "Oh, she just got excited." I then asked my brother's girlfriend later how she knew, and she said, "Well, your mom told me and I thought it might be cute to announce it." I didn't cry or yell, but I went home early and I ignored text messages for the rest of the weekend. My mom then says that I killed the mood, and my brother says that I'm being possessive over a name, but I'm just so frustrated. I wanted to introduce my daughter's name myself. So am I overreacting about this situation, or are they right? Because right now I'm still incredibly pissed off. Okay, dude, first of all, no, you did not overreact. If someone did that to me, I'd be pretty pissed off because the name really is special. It's not something you want people to throw around just all over the place because then it loses its luster. And then before you know it, someone's gonna steal it. And then you're never gonna be able to use that name because like, oh God, someone else took it. And that's definitely happened several times before. And the fact that your mom secretly told everybody about it is completely toxic. Like, you have every right to be pissed off at her and also probably be guarded at telling her anything secretive in the future. So no, you did not overreact and you have every right to be pissed off. An entitled boomer was acting like a complete fool at the airport, all because his flight wasn't on time in the way he wanted, as he literally humiliated himself in a hilarious fashion, especially after the airport staff clapped back. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of backstory, my wife had injured her foot the night before we were set to take a transatlantic flight back to the States from Italy. We thought it healed okay, but the morning of our flight, it started to swell significantly while we were waiting to board at the Naples airport. During the first hour of the flight to Atlanta, where we would need to catch our connecting flight, I asked the flight attendants for some ice and if we could have a wheelchair when we touched down. My parents raised me on the idea that you catch more flies with honey, so I did what I could to be polite and grateful with each request I had to make. The flight attendants were accommodating and amazing and helped ensure that my wife was comfortable during the 9-hour flight. So we touched down and they were extremely apologetic as they explained that we were going to have to walk off the plane and all the way down the tunnel to the gate as they can't bring the wheelchair any closer. I grabbed up our bags and my wife said, "Okay, no problem." So she hobbled slowly and did her best to grab railings for support. We took our time and eventually made it there. Eventually, a delightful woman scooped up my wife in a wheelchair and guided us to the restrooms, baggage claim, and also the drop-off point where we had to place our bags for the connecting flight. This woman was telling jokes, asking us about our trip, and being an all-around wonderful human to my wife. I mean, we were having a ball. Once we dropped off our connecting bags, she took us to an area where other people in wheelchairs were waiting in a sort of queue to go through security. And this is where the boomer of our story was waiting. So, in this area, there was a gentleman who checked us in and confirmed our connecting flight, another gentleman who helped us load our baggage, and a woman who was at a computer terminal and was requesting agents to assist all those in wheelchairs. We thanked the man who checked us in and thanked the man who loaded our bags. We then proceed to wait as we hear and see others passing through security. Our flight doesn't board for another 40 minutes and doesn't leave for another hour and 10 minutes, so we just kind of sit and chat for a little bit. We also know that we have the earliest flight of everyone there because they arrange the queue when we arrive. They put my wife first and they say as much. About 20 minutes pass and 3 more people arrive and are placed in the queue. It's looking like a Mario Kart race is about to begin when the boomer, who's destined to be a fool, starts to get impatient. My wife and I are passing the time chatting when I notice he is starting to become visibly agitated. So he just shuffles in his wheelchair and grimaces a bit. About 25 minutes of waiting and another employee approaches the woman at the computer terminal. They then start having a conversation when this guy yells out, "All of us have connecting flights, you know." This statement is of course superfluous, as I cannot in my head imagine why else the employees of the airport would have lined everyone up in this queue, unless the Atlanta airport has some form of wheelchair-based Mad Max Fury Road kind of event that we just don't know about. The woman at the computer, a saint by all accounts given her patience with this idiot, calmly replies by saying, "Yes sir, we know you have connecting flights. We're working as quickly as we can to get agents here to escort each person through security." The man who had arrived and was speaking with her chimes in as well and says, "We are going to make sure that you are taken care of and don't miss miss your flights. Now, it's clear to my wife and I at this point that every member of Atlanta airport staff that we see is doing the job assigned to them and is working to take care of us. But this completely escapes this entitled boomer. He gestures to the two men who signed us into the queue and helped us out with our bags, who were both currently on their phones since there have not been any new arrivals to the Mario Kart queue. What about them? This entitled boomer shouts, his face turning red and his mustache bristling up to make it look like he's about to audition for the part of Vernon in the new Harry Potter series. The saint replies calmly and says, "Sir, they are not agents. They assist with checking people in and handling their connecting flight baggage." Well, this entitled boomer has had it at this point. His unwillingness to hear reason and his impatience for lackitude to start the race gets the better of him. "This is a stupid system, and of course you would have to do this in the stupidest way possible. Why in the world would you do it this way? You're so stupid." The man who had walked up and was conversing with the saint drops all pretense of politeness at this point and looks at this guy dead in the eye and says, "Well, if you dislike it that much and don't want to let us handle it, you could, just walk through security on your own." The entitled boomer then immediately shuts up and stews in his wheelchair in a silent rage. Literally a minute after the exchange, a pleasant agent by the name of Jasmine swoops in and wheels my wife through security. We make sure to verbally thank every one of the employees in the waiting area before we go. I look back one last time at this entitled boomer as we are leaving, and he is red in the face and looking quietly down at the floor. Once we are on the flight home, my wife and I both talk about the exchange and how cringy his treatment was of the staff as a whole. Yeah, I'm right there with the original poster. I honestly cannot stand when people make these big show and tell about how upset they are at an airport, especially in a place like that, because dude, the plane's gonna show up when it's there. It's not gonna get there any sooner with your complaining, so you might as well just sit tight and deal with it. Plus, the people who helped you and the agents have nothing to do with the flight being on time or late. It is literally not their fault. Because I think the original poster hit the nail on the head. You will absolutely attract more flies with honey, and the boomer in this story was definitely vinegar through and through. Did I overreact by leaving my own engagement dinner after what my family said to me when I said that I didn't want to serve people at my own party? Because right now, everybody seems to be teaming up against me, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm still kind of processing this, so I'm sorry if it's all over the place. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I just had my engagement dinner this weekend. It was a small thing at my parents' house, just close family and some friends. It was supposed to be a happy day. I was in a good mood, a bit exhausted, but I was excited. So after the main stuff was done and people started settling down for food, my mom quietly tells me to go to the kitchen and start serving people. Now, I thought she was joking at first. I'm literally the one getting engaged. I've been up since 6 in the morning helping decorate, cleaning, organizing, smiling through 300 introductions. I had not eaten all day. So I told her very calmly, "Mom, can someone else do it? I just want to sit for 5 minutes and eat." She then just gives me this look. Then my aunt joins in and says something like, "This is how modern girls act now, so full of themselves the moment they get a ring." I think she thought she was whispering, but half the room could hear it. I looked over at my fiance, expecting him to maybe say something, but he just looked down at his plate, like he just didn't want to be involved. And at this point, I don't know what came over me. I felt so embarrassed, so angry. I went to the bedroom and I changed into some jeans. I called a cab and then I left. I then texted my fiance that I needed space and I didn't want to make a scene. Well, now my mom's crying, saying I ruined the event. My dad says I disrespected the family, and my fiance says he gets why I was upset, but he wishes I hadn't walked out like that. I honestly don't know. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I should have just sucked it up. But a part of me keeps thinking, well, if this is how it starts, what's next? So did I overreact here? Because right now I'm not really sure. No, I don't think you overreacted at all. Honestly, the way your family's acting is pretty cruel. You literally got engaged and they're trying to be like, okay, serve everyone food. It is not an unusual ask for you to be like, hey, can somebody else do it? I kind of want to sit and enjoy this moment. For them to be like, oh, you've got to do it. And then for your stupid aunt to be like, wow, women these days, they get a ring and they're so full of themselves. It's like, maybe that's how you act, but that's not at all how the original poster was acting. They didn't ask for some big task. They just said, hey, I don't want to serve people. I want to sit and eat, which kind of also leads me to believe that they do this to you a lot. And this might be the first time you've ever stood up for yourself. But honestly, with all things considered, I don't think you overreacted, because for them to make you serve people during your party is kind of weird in my opinion. My friends literally exclude me from a brunch date that we had planned, as they came early just to try and get a table before I even knew they were showing up, making me wonder why I was friends with them even in the first place. Here's what happened. So I used to be friends with these two girls who I will call Noah and Catherine. One weekend, they got invited to go horseback riding, and they were talking about it in front of me, and I felt really left out because I love riding horses. Anyways, that's when they turned to me and say, hey, do you want to meet up with us for brunch after? And I was like, oh, where are you guys going? And they said they're going to Cracker Barrel. Now, I know on the weekend, the time they wanted to go to Cracker Barrel has a huge wait list. You can't reserve a table as it is first come, first serve. So I just say, sure, I'll happily meet you for brunch. They They told me what time they expect to be there, and I know it's gonna be like half an hour to an hour late. So I'm still getting ready when I get a call from them saying, "Hey, where are you? We're here. Did you reserve a table?" So I said to them, "Wait, you're there on time? All right, I'm on my way." I then jumped in my car and I head to Cracker Barrel. And when I get there, I don't see them waiting in line. So I call them and they say, "Oh yeah, we're actually already seated." So the hostess leads me back, and not only are they seated, they already have food. And I'm just like, wait a second, how did you guys get a table so soon? They then told me that they stole someone else's reservation. So basically, they just put their name in and then waited for the first available table to be called. And they said they were that party so that they got seated immediately, and made me feel like crap for not being there an hour ahead of time to reserve a table for them, leaving me completely baffled at the way they acted. Okay, yeah, these are definitely not your friends. They literally went to this place early to find a spot and didn't even wait for you. And that's awful. Like, that really sucks. Like, you don't deserve that. And based on this story alone, I can see why you used to be friends with these girls. Because if this was like my friend group, we would all wait for each other. We would communicate and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm on my way," or "Oh hey, I'm gonna be there in like 10 minutes," or something like that. You wouldn't just team up and be like, "Okay, we're gonna go early," and then tell the original poster after the fact. Like, they already have food in front of them, meaning that they've been waiting there a while. Like, what's going on right now? That's so dumb. Not to mention the fact that they stole a reservation. Like, what's that all about? They literally stole someone else's reservation to get the spot that they're going to, all the while not including you in this plan. Like, what's happening right now? If anything, they probably just see you as a backup plan and someone they could just write off. And that really sucks. Like, really, really sucks. So I really hope you found better friends than this, because these people do not sound like winners, as these are not the kind of people you would ever want to be friends with. An entitled jerk demands that I turn off my music in my own backyard, as he claims that as a Christian, it's godless and he doesn't want to listen to it. And honestly, after he said this, I was so blown away. So much so that I decided to fight back, stand up for myself, and put him in his place. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I grew up in the 80s listening to post-punk, new wave, goth, new romantics, all the alternative bands from the UK, the United States, and Canada. A lot of it is in minor key, heavy on the bass and drums, wailing synths, crusty, distorted guitars. I think you get the picture. Today on Sunday at around 10 o'clock in the morning, I went out to the backyard with my Bluetooth speaker, a book, and a coffee to enjoy a beautiful spring morning. I placed my speaker on the table next to me, I queued up my favorite playlist, I settled in, and I started to read. My next door neighbors, with whom I have a very friendly and positive relationship, hired a contractor to replace their gutters. This contractor, by the way, is apparently a family friend, as he arrived on Friday and stayed for the weekend. They had a couple of nice evenings in the backyard, grilling up steaks and ribs, having drinks, and swimming. I should also mention that they are evangelical Christians, only because it is relevant to what happened next. And I just want to say, I have nothing against them. I myself am Catholic and I fully respect other religious beliefs. My neighbors left early to attend their regular Sunday church service, leaving the contractor, his wife/assistant, and teenage daughter to finish the work on the gutters. And as it happened, they were working just over the fence from me, maybe 10 meters away. My speaker, which is not particularly loud, as it was right next to my head, began playing a song by The Cure. And the song title is The Walk, and trust me, if you know, then you definitely know. Right then, I unexpectedly heard a voice. "Excuse me?" I then looked up over the fence to see a man looking at me. I say to him, "Oh, hey, how are you? Great job on the gutter." He said to me, "Yeah, thanks. Listen, can you turn that music off?" I said to him, "Oh, what? I didn't think it was very loud. I'm sorry." And when he said that, I really was taken aback. But then he said something that really just kind of blew my mind. He said, "No, it's not the music. We don't appreciate that godless music. It's all about death and violence." And when he said this, I was really speechless. I looked at him just completely stunned for another moment. The song was still playing, heading into the final chords. He then said to me, "Look, I'm not trying to be a jerk. That music doesn't go with my Christian beliefs, and I don't want to hear it or my daughter listening to it." Even though, fun fact, neither his wife nor his daughter were anywhere nearby. I looked at him and I said, "Well, I'm sorry, but I'm in my yard listening to my music. There's no rule against that unless it's after 11 o'clock p.m. I then said to him, "I'm sorry, but if you don't like it, then that's not my problem." The song Life During Wartime started playing, which was as poppy and danceable of a tune that could ever come out of the 80s. He then said to me, "It is Sunday, and like I said, it is seriously against my Christian beliefs to listen to that music." I responded back by saying, "Well, again, I'm sorry if you don't like it, but it's my business what I do in my yard. If you don't like it, put earplugs in or something." He then snapped at me and said, "You're not being very Christian right now. I shouldn't have to listen to it, especially on Sunday." He then quoted something from the Bible about the wicked and God making them cry and gnash their teeth. I looked at him for a long moment and then I just shook my head. I said to him, "Whatever happened to honor the Sabbath and keep it holy? Should you not be working today?" He grew visibly angry at this and yelled something about the Lord's wrath. I said to him, "Look, this is ridiculous. If you don't want to hear it, go work on the other side of the house or put in earplugs or something. I'm trying to enjoy my book. I then turned away at this point and left him standing there, presumably glaring at me over the fence. I was secretly a little worried that he would throw a tool at me or something, but I kept my profile to him and I waited him out. Finally, he snarled and just walked away. I heard the ladder clanking as he took it down and went to the other side of the house out of earshot. He worked for the rest of the morning, and when I returned from my afternoon walk around 2:00 p.m., his truck and trailer were gone. I haven't heard from my neighbors and I don't intend to ever bring it up with them. But regardless, he did a great job on the gutters, even though he was trying to be controlling in a really weird way. Dude, I am a big fan of the original poster in this one. Good for you. I don't care what someone says. If you're on your own property and you're not making any kind of noise that's like unreasonable, then guess what? They have no say over what you can and can't do. And this guy's such a massive hypocrite because guess what? Absolutely, he should not be working on Sunday. If he really was this righteous Christian that he wanted to be, then he wouldn't be working on Sunday. Like, this guy's a complete clown. So seriously, good for you for standing up for yourself and not letting this weirdo control what you can and can't do. Especially the fact that he was trying to force his religion on you, which I think is incredibly messed up. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I've been lying to my friends about being broke just to avoid expensive hangouts, and honestly, it's the best decision I ever made. Here's what's going on. Okay, so this whole thing started last November when my transmission died on Highway 85 during morning rush hour, with the car being towed and being hit with repairs. Overall, this cost me $2,847, and suddenly I was genuinely tight for money for the first time since college. But luckily, I won about $3,000 gambling, so I just handled it that way. When my coworker invited our usual group to that new steakhouse downtown, you know, the one where appetizers start at $18, I had to pass and say that I was just completely broke. My emergency fund recovered by February, but I kept using the broke excuse because I realized something weird. I was actually much happier. No more awkward bill splits or feeling obligated to hit up expensive bars just because it's somebody's birthday. Instead, I've been spending my money on stuff that actually gives me a rush. Like last weekend, I drove to this place about an hour away where they have these vintage arcade machines and you can play for hours on $20. It felt more alive than any overpriced dinner I've ever sat through. Now, my friends figured out that I'm not actually struggling anymore, but they've also stopped pressuring me about the group dinners. It turns out being the broke friend gave me permission to be picky about how I spend both my time and my money. I know it's dishonest, and sometimes I feel guilty when my girlfriend mentions how she misses having me at dinner, but honestly, I sleep better knowing that my money goes towards things that actually excite me instead of social obligations that drain me. Okay, honestly, I kind of see where you're coming from, especially with like the trend of people being like, oh yeah, let's go to this really expensive steakhouse. Like, dude, I can't afford that. That's way too much money. Like, I could understand like once a month, maybe at most, but to be expected to do that possibly multiple times a week, like that would be really obnoxious. So you know what? If this makes you happy, then by all means go for it. I don't think you're the jerk for doing that, and honestly, it sounds like it worked out in the end. Am I the jerk for telling my brother-in-law that he needs to book a hotel when he and my sister were staying at my house? Because after my brother-in-law has been hogging my bathroom nonstop, I'm honestly at my breaking point and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, my sister and her husband live across the country and decided that they wanted to come and visit. I live in a 2-bed, 1-bath, and I set up a bed in my home office because they wanted to stay at my house. And at this point, they had been here for 4 days. The bathroom has been a big problem. He spends hours in there. After the first day, I talked to my sister about it, and she says he has a condition where he needs the bathroom a lot. So I just let it rest. But on day 3, it was even worse. There was a time where I had to excuse myself to go to the store so that I could use the bathroom twice because he wouldn't leave. The last day, I woke up at 4 in the morning and I had to use the bathroom very badly. I knocked on the door and he said that he would be out in a minute. I told him I really had to go, but it literally took him an hour to get out. The nearby store wasn't open at that time, and I had to do something I am not happy I had to do because I couldn't wait. The next morning, I then told him he needs to get a hotel. I can't be blocked from using the bathroom in my own home because he takes it hostage. I get that he has a condition, but so do I. And I make sure that I have my own bathroom when I travel so I don't get in the way of other people needing the bathroom. My sister and her brother-in-law were very upset and called me ableist, but I told them what I had to do last night because he was in the bathroom for so long, and they said I could have held it. I told them they need to leave and find a hotel or stay with other family because he just cannot stay here anymore. So am I the jerk for telling my sister and brother-in-law this, or am I justified in my reaction? Because right now I'm still very frustrated. Okay, I'm sorry, but anyone who's going to the bathroom for over an hour has probably finished doing their business after like maybe 20 minutes and are then just sitting on their phone doing doing nothing but like scrolling TikTok or something like that. Like seriously, what's going on right now? This is crazy. Like if they really are using that much time because of a condition, then a hotel really would be the best case for anybody. And I think they would agree if that was the case. But in my opinion, it just seems like this guy is just, I don't know, doing whatever in the bathroom, and you can use your imagination there. So no, you're not the jerk for saying, hey, you gotta get a hotel, because what this guy's doing, in my opinion, is very obnoxious. Am I the jerk for choosing not to compensate my friend after she said I owe her money for the emotional stress that she went through in helping me move? And I'm honestly blown away by this entitlement, and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So basically, I just moved across the country from the Midwest to the East Coast, and my friend tagged along. I didn't have room in my car for myself, my 2 cats, her, and her boyfriend, so she followed in a rental car, and I was able to put some stuff in the back of it. Now, all was seemingly going pretty well, and I got to my new place all right, and I unloaded both cars. However, this morning she came to my new place with her boyfriend with 10 minutes of lead time, which was already annoying, but I didn't have anything else to do, so it was fine. However, when she got to my place, she said something along the lines of, "Oh, this is a nice apartment. By the way, you should pay me a lot of money." Now, I was super confused, so obviously I asked what she meant by that. She clarified that the trip was exceptionally stressful for her, as she was constantly anxious, exhausted, and had panic attacks. She said that it was probably the worst time of her life, and that I needed to compensate her somehow. Well, this left me pretty speechless, as we only discussed me pitching in to help over the cost of her rental car, which by the way, I paid for half. Her boyfriend then said that I needed to pay more because it wasn't just about the rental car. It was about her driving through the Midwest being visibly trans and having to go through the stress of finding safe bathrooms for 3 days of driving. We sat in awkward silence for about 10 minutes in my empty apartment before she randomly left my apartment without saying anything. So I kinda need to know, am I the jerk for refusing to compensate her? I don't think I should have to pay anything because I did not ask her to go. For reference, she asked me if she could tag along with her boyfriend. I already contributed for her rental, and I gave her a travel itinerary weeks before we left, so it wasn't like she didn't know where we were driving through ahead of time. I just feel like her anxiety and stress simply isn't my problem, and instead this should just be a life lesson for her not to volunteer to help someone move long distance. What should I do? No, you're not the jerk for turning her down. Screw that. There's no way that's appropriate. Are you kidding me right now? She's trying to be like, oh yeah, the stress of like moving you here is just too much, so you need to compensate me more financially or else this is just messed up. And it's like, dude, you already literally paid for the rental car. You paid half of it and that's all you agreed on. But now they're trying to shake you down for money right when you move in? Like, what are you talking about? You didn't even ask them to come along. You just said, oh yeah, here, tag along. By the way, I'll help you pay for the rental. Like, that's so stupid. Like, what are you doing? If you didn't want to help out, then why did you help out? And then after helping out, why'd you then be like, oh, I need more money, please? Like, that's not a friend. That's someone who literally is just a piece of garbage. So no, you're not the jerk here. Their feelings are their responsibility, and the fact that they're trying to monetize that is insane in my opinion. My girlfriend's toxic coworker is constantly making my girlfriend feel like garbage, but things really start to ramp up when she starts to be insufferable about her new engagement ring. So I decided to get some petty revenge by proposing to my girlfriend with an even better engagement ring, blowing this other lady's engagement ring completely out of the water. Here's how I did it. This happened years ago when my girlfriend, who's now my wife, was working a fairly physically demanding, potentially dangerous job with animals. There was another woman working with her, let's call her Karen for the sake of the story, who constantly shirked responsibilities and dumped extra work on my girlfriend, and generally made every day absolutely miserable. My girlfriend would come home tired, defeated, and not looking forward to any shift she had to work with Karen. One day, Karen came to work all smiles. She was engaged and so excited to show off the ring her fiance had gotten her, and this went on for weeks. Now, not only was she an insufferable employee, but now she was also an insufferable person, flashing her ring and talking about it non-stop. Well, here's my sweet revenge. My girlfriend and I had been together about 3 years at this point, and I was indeed planning to propose. We hadn't discussed rings at all, so I took it upon myself to pick out the ring, and I decided to pick out an engagement ring that was superior to Karen's ring in every single way. Where Karen had gold, I had platinum. If she had 1 carat diamond, I had 1.7 carats. When it comes to the color and clarity, we got it as perfect as I could possibly get it. I also chose a particular type of cut that made the diamond especially sparkly. Now, how did I know the specifications? Because I would go to work functions and listen to her go on and on to anyone who would listen. My girlfriend and I went away on a long weekend, and when she returned to work and showed everyone in the break room her ring and announced her engagement, they were all super impressed except for Karen, who stormed out of the room and started crying in the hallway. Needless to say, she never talked about her ring again and would visibly scowl whenever she saw my girlfriend's ring. Karen left that job not too long after we were engaged, and I have no idea what happened to her, nor do I even care. But when I told my girlfriend why I went just a little bit overboard with her ring, she did say that was terrible, but she laughed when she said it. I love this, man. This is one of those like really good karma stories where it's like, okay, you got some good revenge. Because you know for a fact this Karen's like one claim to fame was having this ring in everybody's face and being like, oh yeah, look at this thing. This is so nice. And it's like, dude, this is so insufferable. You're just trying to make us all feel bad. So I seriously love the fact that you got back at her in such a fun way, because this clearly got under her skin when it shouldn't. This really should not have affected her at all. And the fact that it did is just so stupid in my opinion. An entitled Karen is quite literally trying to take my man from me. So I get some petty revenge by tricking her into dyeing her hair blonde. Here's how I did it. So there's this woman that I know, and she is quite frankly awful to be around, but entertaining enough to watch in small doses. She is a massive attention seeker. Drama follows her everywhere, yet she never quite realizes that she is the drama, because in her eyes, she is a creative and natural empath. She will go into a group of people having a normal old time, and suddenly everyone has enemies, relationship issues, and lives are falling apart. She comes across as a bit lonely and that she needs attention from men for her own validation. And you know what? She turned her sights on my man. He told me everything that was going on as it happened. I later heard by someone else that she was trash talking me. I know I'm making a whole post about her, but I genuinely do keep her at an arm's distance. She doesn't talk to me anywhere near enough to be forming opinions about me like this. So needless to say, I was not happy. But I also had an idea. Someone else around us recently had highlights in their hair. She has black hair, and I knew her hair couldn't handle heavy bleaching, and that it would grow out weirdly without the proper maintenance on her hair. So I made such a big fuss about how hot the woman with highlights looked. I talked about how blondes just have the it factor, and that it's totally a summer 2025 kind of look. I talked about how I wanted to go blonde, and I even made some of the guys agree that blondes were hot in front of her. Now this lady is impulsive, and she's attention-seeking enough that I knew she would go blonde if I hyped it up enough. And you know what? That's exactly what she did. She doesn't have enough money for a proper hairdresser to do it, so she just did it at home. She did multiple rounds in the same day with box bleach, and her hair is now orange and fried. She has now turned it around and keeps asking the guys if she's still pretty, and everyone is being really nice towards her over it. But you know what? It looks terrible, and I definitely see a bob in her near future. Dude, I love this kind of revenge because you didn't get up in her face, you didn't like get pissed off at her. Instead, you decided to get petty and you literally ruined her image. And I just love stuff like that because my god, it sounds like she absolutely deserved it. I mean, what kind of scumbag is she? She was literally going after someone who was already in a relationship. Like, dude, what are you doing? That's off limits. You can't do that. So yeah, this lady absolutely deserved it, and I love the way that you handled this situation. Am I the jerk for evicting my friend of 12 years from my rental unit after he literally causes $5,000 in damages? Because right now I feel like an awful friend and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I let a friend of 12 years live rent-free in my rental unit after he fell on hard times. He lost his house and car and was dealing with custody issues. I don't judge because he had always been a loyal friend. In return for the free housing, I asked him to work on some repairs at the property. I cover the bigger expenses and he agreed to handle smaller costs like paint and wood. When I visited about 6 weeks later, he had only completed one task from a 12-task list. Now, I was a little frustrated, especially since he wasn't maintaining the yard either, but I gave him grace because of his personal issues. I voiced my frustration and I let him know that he'd still have about 2 more rent-free months after finishing the list, so there's no reason to stall if that was his worry. Then last night his girlfriend came over. They had been there drinking with a friend and it ended up with my unit being completely trashed. We're talking over $5,000 in damages. The glass patio door connecting to the kitchen was shattered, fresh tile and hardwood was ruined with sage paint, holes in the drywall and light fixtures were ripped out. I mean, I was furious, but I kept calm, and I asked him how long it would take to secure the door and fix the damages, this time on his dime. Well, he said he could board the door right away, but he would need about 3 months to fix everything, plus another 3 months to finish the original list. But you know what? That was way too long for me. I no longer trust him to stay there, especially considering this wasn't the first serious argument that he'd had with his girlfriend. One time, she even tried to run him over with her car. So I told him that he'd have 3 days to leave and had to sign a notarized letter confirming the notice and the damages. And I did that just to try and protect myself. And when I spoke to him, he didn't seem upset about it, but instead just sad. I know he has nowhere to go and was couch hopping before, but this is still my property and reputation within the neighborhood. I don't want to be associated with chaos. Ever since the incident, I've arranged to install security cameras, change the locks, and update the home security system. I'm not asking him to pay for any damages since we agreed on eviction. I mean, this was the only negative experience we've had in our friendship, so I'm wondering if I'm the jerk for kicking him out. Did I go too far having him sign an eviction letter, even though I never had him sign a formal lease? What should I do? Dude, this does not sound like a good friend at all. Like, I know you're trying to be like, oh yeah, we're friends, we've been friends forever. But like, look around, dude, let's read the room for a second. This guy caused $5,000 worth of damages. You really think this guy's your friend if he's gonna be doing crap like that? Like, seriously, this is so uncalled for. This is unfair for you and your property. And I'm so glad you saw through his lies, because this guy was literally gonna try and live there for 6 more months. Not just to fix the damages that they did, but also do the things that he agreed to do in the first place. It's like, dude, what's going on? This is so stupid. So no, you're not the jerk. You did the right thing by kicking him out, because at this point, there really is no reason why he should stick around, as I really feel like this guy was just taking advantage of you. Am I the jerk for calling out my friend for re-gifting a present to me after she gave me a ring as a present that she literally bought for herself? Here's what happened. One of my closest friends gave me a birthday present. There were several small items, and the last thing I opened was a ring with a small citrine stone. I was immediately disappointed, because I recognized this ring because my friend had bought it from a crystal shop for herself when we were on an out-of-town trip together. She didn't want it wrapped up. She wore it out of the store and she showed it to me as we left. I remember not liking it, but I still said something like, oh, that's nice. Now, I confirmed it was her ring by trying it on right away. You know, unless she was doing some kind of like best friend pair rings thing and had a matching one. But it immediately fell off my thumb, which is my biggest finger. She knows my ring size is 6, because for reference, she bought me a ring the previous year. And I know for a fact her ring size is 9. So that's when I knew that this was the ring she had bought for herself. I know I should be grateful for receiving anything at all, but I guess it was especially disappointing because I put a lot of time and thought into her presents, and her gifts really can be hit or miss. She saw it fall off my finger and then enthusiastically went into how she bought it in the city that we visited. Well, I couldn't help myself, and I replied in a quiet voice, well, I know, I was with you when you wore it out of the store. Her memory isn't great at times, so I'm sure that she had forgotten this fact. She immediately denied it by saying, no, I didn't, and then changed the subject, and we just didn't mention it again. I do feel the more polite thing would have been to be more gracious and just thanked her for the gift. But on the other hand, I am the type to keep things bottled up and not talk about things that bother me, and I just can't help it because this really bothered me. So am I the jerk for calling this out? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. No, I don't think you're the jerk, especially if you're close friends, because it really seems like this could have been more heartfelt, but instead she's like giving you something that she bought for herself. Like seriously, at least get me something that you think is gonna be sentimental. Like that is super annoying to be like, oh yeah, here's a gift for you that I bought from the city. And then she like conveniently forgets that, oh yeah, you were there for that, my bad. So yeah, your friend's an idiot and they definitely should not have done that. And if I was in your shoes and I knew this friend really well, I definitely would have called them out as well. An entitled Karen thinks that my driveway is actually hers, as she decides to aggressively park in my driveway, thus blocking my access to my own property. And despite the fact that I've told her repeatedly that she can't do this, she said she has every right to do it simply because the previous owners of my house allowed her to do this for 10 years. But after I had her car towed for violating my very clear warning, she escalated in a way I never expected by literally calling the cops on me. Here's what happened. So I recently bought my first home in a quiet suburb. It's a super proud moment for me being single in my early 30s and having saved for years. The house has a long driveway that leads up to a detached garage in the back, and I park halfway up it so I can easily walk to the front door. Now, an important detail with all of this, the driveway is 100% on my property and it is not shared. Now, my neighbor, who is the entitled Karen of this story, is in her mid-40s and has lived in her house for over a decade. She was pleasant enough when I first moved in, bringing over cookies and saying things like, oh, welcome to the neighborhood. That is, until I actually started using my driveway. About a week after I moved in, I came home to find her car parked in my driveway. Not partially, mind you, but just completely blocking my garage. I thought maybe it was a mistake, like someone visiting her got confused. So I knocked on her door and she answered by saying, oh, that's just me. I've always parked there. The old owners let me. Well, I told her as politely as I could that it's my property and I'd prefer to keep it clear for my car. She then replied by saying, well, I've been here for 10 years. It's just easier for me and the street gets icy. Plus my driveway is too narrow. You have the room. I repeated myself nicely but firmly and said I needed it to be clear moving forward. She just rolled her eyes and then slammed the door in my face. And I really thought that was the end of it, but of course it wasn't. The next day, her car was back. I left a note this time just in case she didn't hear me the first time, and then I started parking behind her so she couldn't leave until she came to talk to me. Well, sure enough, she came over furious. She started yelling about how I was being disrespectful and selfish, saying that good neighbors share. But I told her that if she parked there again, I would have her towed. She said, and I quote, well, that's not very neighborly Kimberly. You'll regret making enemies here. So I did exactly what I said. The next time she parked there, I called a tow truck. And you know what? She lost it and called the cops on me. But when they showed up, they saw my property line and basically told her to stop bothering me. Because in this case, she didn't have a leg to stand on. Yeah, that is some serious entitlement she's got there. This Karen literally was like, oh, well, the other owners allowed me to do this, so guess what? I'm gonna do it to you. But like, seriously, why should you be held responsible for what other owners did for this dumb Karen? You're not responsible for any of that, and the fact that she's trying to be like, oh, you absolutely have to listen to me, as well as her calling the cops on you, like, that is so out of line. Like, this literally is not her property, and she has her own driveway. Like, what are you doing? So seriously, good for you for putting your foot down and not letting this Karen boss you around, because her behavior absolutely deserved to be punished. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My job demands that I report all the incidents no matter what might be happening. So I decided to maliciously comply, resulting in my boss becoming incredibly frustrated at the constant reports, leading to an eventual change in policy that honestly should have happened way sooner. Here's how it went down. Okay, to start things out, I'm a site supervisor who oversees a team of 10, and we're responsible for the after-hours cleaning in a high school. Generally speaking, my team reports any damage or graffiti they find, and although it's not technically part of my role, I'll assist hirers who have rented the site facilities for sports and stuff like that. And this really is nothing major. I swipe them in if they've got issues with their access cards, or dish out directions. I'm also responsible to ensure site security at the end of each shift, which was until recently basically alarming the buildings. Most schools in my state in southern Australia are gated and therefore fully secured once the main 6-foot gate is secure. But this site is not gated and is accessed by the general public. There are also always people cutting through the grounds or walking their dogs on the ovals. And this is all good. I do my job, I alarm the site, and then I go home. Well, a few weeks back, it was discovered that a student had somehow gotten a hold of a swipe card, which gave them access to the site after hours. Now, they had allegedly had this card for almost a year and managed to get away with it. Though how this happened isn't very clear, since I alarmed the bulk of the site, save areas that are hired out beyond my finish time. The end result of this discovery has basically been a huge overhaul of security protocols and a crackdown on alarming. I was given direction that at the end of each shift, I was to alarm the site as usual. However, if any buildings didn't alarm that I knew should have, I had to then complete 2 additional steps: contact police security and inform the faculty leader immediately. I finished at 8:00 p.m. and my faculty leader's workday ends at about 4 p.m. and she's not really keen on being disturbed after hours. However, the instructions were clear. Any incident had to be reported to her. Now, it's important to know that the site is old, the alarm system is sensitive, and frankly, it's a daily occurrence that a building won't alarm for some reason, or a hirer will access an area they're not technically supposed to be in. And my boss knows this, or at least I thought she did. So on Monday night, I have to call police security and then her, with the same thing happening the following day on Tuesday. Well, fast forward and all week, there was always something that prior to all the changes, I would log into a book that my boss would then have to sign off on the next day. Well, by Friday, she was really snippy with me, sighing, tutting, that sort of thing. But then my weekend crew had a few issues, and as I was supposed to, I just reported them. Or, you know, at least I tried to, because my boss didn't take any of my calls. Monday morning rolls around again and I get called into a meeting. And this is where I find out that my boss has decided that we will revert back to the old system, as she didn't appreciate all the calls, nor did she appreciate police security emailing her, asking why the cleaner keeps lodging nightly reports. Okay, I really love this story because sometimes this is exactly what it takes to get rid of stupid rules. Like, I'm sure this boss did not want to be bothered all hours of the night, constantly, and they definitely wanted to be off their shift at 4 o'clock. Like, they definitely do not want to be alerted later in the night that, yeah, something went wrong again. So good for you for maliciously complying. Like, seriously, this really did, like, change the system up, and it made things so much easier and less tedious, which in my opinion is always a good thing. My husband refuses to move from my dream job, despite the fact that I will never get anything like this ever again. And I'm now at such an impasse that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I've kind of reached an impasse here, so I'm now throwing it out to the internet to look for some advice. Now, I'm an academic, which means that job opportunities are few and far between. I've been applying for everything possible for the last 3 years, and finally, I've managed to secure something. Now, this is a permanent thing, and since it's externally funded from a university, it's free from the potential job losses that United Kingdom academia is currently going through. This is my dream job, and it's that career stability that I've been working towards for a decade. For reference, I have a PhD and 2 postdoctorates. They want me in the office full time, and the job is about 150 miles from where we're currently living, so it would require moving. My new boss is flexible flexible on me being in the office a couple days a week for a bit, while things get sorted, but the job starts in September, so things are becoming very real now. However, my husband is dead set against moving. We have a house that we bought 5 years ago, so in that sense, we are kind of settled in. I'm currently working about a 4-hour commute away, which is about 2 hours each way, and where we are, I don't really have any family or friends. However, he wants to be close to his family and has said that basically this job cannot be a long-term solution. I've been open to pivoting and looking at career opportunities where we're living, but there's nothing within a 30-mile radius, which given where we are is probably a 90-minute drive each way given rush hour traffic. Staying here would mean taking a 20 to 40% pay cut, as I'm now on a senior postdoctorate salary compared to the jobs I might be competitive for here. This would obviously be a huge strain on our joint finances, so this isn't really an option. Additionally, my husband's parents are planning on moving in the very near future. I mean, they're looking at places right now. They already have a summer house in mainland Europe that they're planning on spending a substantial chunk of their time at, and they're also now looking at selling their current place and moving about 4 hours across the country. I've tried to discuss this with my husband, but he just gets defensive. He says that moving so far away would put him outside of his support network, and he can't be that far from his family. He has, however, suggested that we could move in with his parents to wherever they end up. Now, I've been looking, but they're planning on moving way out in the country, so the situation is just the same. There are no job opportunities for me there, and it wouldn't be within a commutable distance of this job I do have. I think what hurts the most is that he is totally unwilling to see things from my perspective, that I can't see a way to provide without taking this job. I understand him wanting to be close to family, but even given the fact that they won't be in the country for a chunk of the time, I really feel like a spouse should come first. Especially staying close to family means our relationship taking a huge hit. Likely, if I take up a job here, we won't have the financial stability to afford to have kids. And then the fact that he's totally willing to get up and move for his parents, but won't even entertain that possibility for me just really hurts. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do here. It's been a truly miserable situation with everyone being happy for me getting this job, apart from the one person who's supposed to be my biggest cheerleader. What should I do? Okay, your husband is being so selfish right now. Seriously, this is so stupid. Why on earth would he not be supportive and be like, oh my gosh, let's do it? Like, if he really cared about you, he would be jumping all over this opportunity. I know I would. Like, if I had a partner who worked this hard to get their doctorate and then get this chance to have this job, I'd be like, oh my gosh, let's do this. This is fantastic. But instead, this guy's trying to be like, oh, I want to be closer to my parents. And mind you, this guy's 31 years old. Like, I get it. You want to be close to family, but dude, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Why not take a chance and see where it goes, dude? At least give it some time. So truly, I really hope there's some kind of solution to this, and hopefully your husband sees where you're coming from, because this really is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and the fact that he's not seeing it is so stupid. My entitled roommate demands that I move out simply because she got pregnant, essentially implying that because I have no kids, she should be given more compassion and understanding for her situation, which basically means I've got to move out in order to make room for her spawn. But after being told this, I said no, I'm not moving, resulting in her freaking out on me in a way that honestly is so frustrating. Here's what's going on. Okay, this is happening right now, and I'm honestly still trying to wrap my head around it. I'm a 26-year-old woman sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with my roommate, who we will call Leah, who is also 28 years old. We've lived here for about 5 months now. The arrangements have been quite straightforward, as we each have our own bedroom, we split rent evenly, and we generally just keep to ourselves. I work remotely, so I've set up a small desk and a monitor in my bedroom to serve as my home office. It's not a huge space, but it's enough for my needs. Well, about a month ago, Leah found out that she was pregnant. I congratulated her, and I assumed that she had a plan in place for whatever adjustments she needed to make. But man, I was completely wrong. Last week, she asked to have a serious talk and told me that she had decided she needed the entire apartment to herself. Her reasoning was that once the baby is born, it will be too stressful and cramped to share the space with another adult. She said she wanted to turn the second bedroom, which was my bedroom, into a nursery, and she thought I should start looking for a new place soon. But I reminded her that we are both on the lease and that I have no intention of moving out. I had no prior plans of doing that and get an urgent apartment in my state, which was a hassle. I pay my share of the rent and the bills, and I rely on this space to do my job. Her pregnancy, while important to her, does not give her the right to kick me out or repurpose my space for her convenience. Well, when I said that, she did not take that well. She insisted that I was being inflexible and unsupportive, saying it was unfair for a newborn to be crammed into her room when there was another perfectly good bedroom in the apartment. She argued that as someone without children, I should be more compassionate and understanding of her situation. Ever since then, Leah has become increasingly passive-aggressive. She slams doors, mutters comments under her breath, and frequently makes remarks about how some people only care about themselves. She keeps suggesting requesting that I should do the right thing and make space for the baby, as though her personal life choices somehow outweigh the legal agreement we both signed on to. I've already contacted our landlord to make sure my rights are protected in case she tries something sneaky, because I am not going anywhere. Leah is the one who chose to have a baby mid-lease with no real plan in place, and that's not my responsibility to fix. And I'm not giving up my home because she failed to think things through. If she wants more space, she can find another apartment, because at this point, I will gladly help her pack. Dude, good for you for putting down your foot and saying, no, I'm not gonna move. Because her request is completely absurd. Just because she had a kid, which by the way absolutely is her choice, doesn't mean she gets to dictate how you live your life in the space that you're renting. And it's so funny because her arguments can literally be used against her. If she's so judgmental towards people she considers selfish, then why not find another apartment of her own? Instead of kicking your roommate out, go find another place where yes, you can have a space for the baby. Because this is just straight up lazy. Like, this is so stupid. Why should the original poster have to uproot their life all because they don't have any kids? That doesn't give you a license to be rude to the original poster. Like, that is so dumb. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would do the same thing. I would refuse to move and make sure that my rights are secured, because you can bet that your roommate might try something in the future, so it's better to be safe than sorry in this kind of scenario. Am I the jerk for turning down a weird solicitor in a way that my brother didn't like after he chose to not address it when he had the chance? Here's what's going on. I'm a 19-year-old female and I was sitting at our kitchen table across from an open window that's near our front door. To get to our front door, you must pass this window. Now, my 21-year-old brother was shirtless on his computer in the living room, and a guy came up who was maybe about 25 years old and knocked on our door in a friendly way. My brother had peered through the window blinds and didn't recognize him, so we just figured we wouldn't answer the door. I offered to my brother for him to just open the door, but he declined and went back to his computer. The guy knocked again, and I thought after that he would be done. Well, he started walking off, but right as he was about to leave, he saw me through the window and started waving, sort of in a cocky way. And needless to say, this was very uncomfortable. And I honestly just don't know why, but he just didn't walk away. I shook my head at the guy to say no, and then started telling my brother that he was still in the window just waving. Even still, I sort of ignored the guy for a little, but he just kept on waving and looking rude. I asked my brother, hey, can you just open the door and say something? But he said he didn't have a shirt on, so he didn't want to. The guy outside said something incomprehensible, but he still wasn't leaving. So I finally got up, frustrated at the guy not leaving and my brother not helping, and at the sight of me getting up from the table, the guy threw his hands up all sighing and dramatic, shouting, "There we go," through the closed window. I went and I opened the door and I said, "We're not interested," in a concise and straightforward manner. Then I just closed the door and I locked it again. The guy lingered afterwards, shouting, "Oh, you might be," through the door, and some other similar phrases I couldn't quite make out. He eventually left, but it made me a little paranoid and nervous that he might return. The whole situation shot my anxiety up, so yes, I might not have handled it in a perfect way, but I thought it was realistic and I didn't have any ill intentions behind it. My brother afterwards told me that he didn't like the way that I handled it. He thinks I should have been nicer to the guy. I don't think I was mean, but I just was not going to sugarcoat it or give him the time to do his whole sales spiel. So I told my brother that if he didn't like how I reacted, then he should have just answered the door instead. I said that I didn't appreciate the way that he handled the situation either, not stepping in and just opening the door instead in the first place. I don't know if he was just insecure of opening the door shirtless or some other reason, but it wasn't very brotherly of him. I gave him 2 to 3 chances where I asked him to just open the door, but he didn't do anything. It's also really funny. He talks a really big game about how he thinks gender roles are super important and men should be filling masculine roles and women should be protected, but somehow I'm the one who cooks, cleans, fixes, and builds things around the house, as well as always being aware and on guard about people in front. So am I the jerk for handling the situation in the way that I did, or is my brother at fault for not handling it instead? What should I do? Okay, I really love the fact that you stepped up and said something, because this is such an easy situation your brother could have handled. And in my opinion, he absolutely should have handled it. Not just because he's like the man in the house or anything like that, but because he literally was closer to the door. He could have stepped up and been like, "Hey, we're not interested in what you're selling," and then closed it, and that would have been the end of it. It would have been done right then and there, and then it's like, okay, we don't have to worry about that. But instead, he chooses to not get involved, but then actually sit there and try and judge the way you handled it. Like, dude, you didn't do anything, so I had to say something. This guy was waving at me through the window. Like, seriously, what am I supposed to do? Sit there and just do nothing like you? He's just gonna sit there longer and still try to sell us his crap. Which also, as a side note, I really hate people who go door to door. Like, I know that might be someone's job out there, but honestly, it is super annoying and I just don't like it. Like, to each their own. Live your life however you want to do it, make money however you want. But personally, I really just find those guys infuriating and I just don't like having to deal with them. So I completely understand where everybody in this story is coming from, because those people are super frustrating. But in my opinion, your brother was way closer to the door, so he easily could have handled it if he really wanted to. do. And that, in my opinion, absolutely makes him the jerk. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story, because we would love to hear what you have to say. A group of entitled teenagers keep parking their car on my land and having a party. And after I've explained to them several times that they need to get lost, these kids have just consistently disrespected me and ignored me. So I decided to get some revenge by literally preventing their cars from leaving my property without the use of a tow truck. And now I'm wondering if I went too far or if I'm justified in my actions. Here's what happened. To start things out, I'm a 54-year-old farmer, and this story has been eating at me for a few days now. And I don't know if I went too far, but here it goes. I own a decent-sized piece of farmland in a rural area, and for the past few weeks, a group of teenagers from town has decided that my land is their personal parking lot. It started with 1 or 2 cars on weekends, but then more showed up. At first, I figured they were just parking for a bit, and I didn't think too much of it. But then they started coming more often, and they were louder, rowdier, and more disrespectful every single time. They would park along the edge of one of my fields that I clearly own and maintain. They would blast music, scream, laugh late into the night, and even throw rocks at my goats and chickens like it was a carnival game. One of them actually climbed on top of my old tractor for selfies. I tried being polite at first, and I walked out and asked them to leave. But that only got some sarcastic "yes sir" and some exaggerated salutes, followed by laughter as they peeled out, leaving tire tracks in the dirt. I put up a sign that said "private property, no parking" in bold red letters, but they knocked it over and spray painted a smiley face on it. The final straw came last week when they were out there again, this time in 4 separate cars, blaring some bass-heavy garbage at 11 o'clock p.m. I had an early morning of work ahead of me and I couldn't sleep. I yelled from my porch to get off my land, and one of them shouted back by saying, "It's a free country, boomer." Well, if it's a free country, then I guess I'm free to plow my own field. The next morning was plow day. It had rained a bit the night before, so the ground was soft, perfect for my tractor and awful for car tires. I went out with my plow and I did my usual work, but I made sure to do a very thorough job plowing around their parked cars. I didn't touch their vehicles, but I plowed the soil nice and deep around them in every direction. With the rain and the churned up dirt, it turned into thick, sticky mud. When they came back later that afternoon, they were furious. One of the trucks got stuck trying to drive out, and another car's wheels were spinning until they gave up and just called a tow. And you know what? I just sat on my porch, sipping coffee and watching like a Netflix special. Later, one of their parents came by to chew me out for apparently trapping their kids. But I calmly pointed out that they were on private property without my permission. They had ignored my signs and disrespected me multiple times. Well, these people called me petty, but I just said, if I can't protect my own land, then what can I protect? And now some people in town are calling me farmer jerk and saying I escalated things unnecessarily. I didn't touch their cars, I just plowed my field. You know, the very field that they shouldn't have been on in the first place. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm still pretty pissed off. Yeah, this is absolutely not your fault, because the only jerks in this situation are the teenagers and the parents trying to defend them. Like seriously, let's think about this for a second. They're trespassing on private property, they're ignoring the property owner, they're disrespecting him, they're ignoring the privacy signs. Like this guy did everything he possibly could besides calling the police to get these guys off his property. And in my opinion, he did it way nicer than I would have. Like I would have been calling the police almost immediately. But that's just me. Like that's how I would have handled it. But I also appreciate how the original poster did it. Like this is completely fine too. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. And the fact that you plowed around their car pretty much forced them to spend a lot of money to get their cars out of that situation. So hopefully this is a lesson they won't soon forget, because they literally could have avoided all of this if they simply listened to the original poster. My entitled cousin demands that I let her move into my house, stating that because I have the room, she should be allowed to stay there for pretty much as long as she wants. But after growing up around her and knowing how much drama comes along with her, I decided to put my foot down and say no, as I know for a fact she will literally ruin my life and stay way longer than she should. Here's what's going on. I'm a 25-year-old female and I bought my own 3-bedroom house last year after working full-time and saving up, which was a huge deal for me. One room's mine, one is my study, and the third is a guest room, which was for actual guests. And we're talking people who would stay for like a weekend and then leave. Life was moving pretty good until I got a random call from my cousin, who we will call Tasha. For just a bit of background, Tasha has always been a bit of a nutcase, even when we were kids. Constant drama, always lying, stealing little things, blaming others, etc. My mom once said that Tasha could smash a glass and somehow make it someone else's fault. And as we got older, the rumors about her got worse. Stuff about how she would go around town with sketchy guys, she would be on the party scenes, with the possibility of substance use, but nothing was confirmed. But you know what? Nobody's shocked. We barely talk unless it's at a family event, and even then, I keep it short. So we were on the phone, and after 2 minutes of fake small talk, she then says that she broke up with her boyfriend, and she figured she will stay at my place for a while. You know, just for a few months until she got her stuff together. And she said it like she was inviting herself to dinner. And she was saying it like, oh please, you don't mind, right? I'll just be there. But I said no. I said it nicely at first, as I told her the guest room isn't for long-term stays, and I need peace to work from home. Well, that's when she started getting nasty. She said I was acting all high and mighty because I bought a house. Like that makes me better than everyone. But I still stood my ground. A few days later, my other aunt, you know, not even her own mom, just one of those older relatives who tries to play the peacemaker, called me up and said, you know, it wouldn't hurt to help her out. She is still family. But I flat out told her that I've seen Tasha move in with people before, and it's never for a few months. She comes with drama, a suitcase full of bad decisions, and she never leaves unless someone threatens legal action. So no, I'm not doing it. I work too hard for my peace and my space just to hand it over to someone who has always been bad news. Because honestly, she can figure it out. Because that process is definitely not gonna happen in my house. Dude, good for you for standing your ground. This Tasha lady sounds awful. Like seriously, just one big drama queen who's just waiting to ruin your life. And that's honestly all that would happen. She would ruin everything and treat you like garbage. And the fact that anyone's trying to come to her defense and be like, oh, but we're family. Family does this. Come on. Just let her in and let her move in. This'll be fine. It's like, no, dude, if you really feel that way, then let her move in with you. Like it's always the people who are like, oh, come on, just do it for this one time. Those are the kind of people who would never do it themselves and are only reaching out because they're like, please, she's calling me nonstop. Please make it stop by like fixing this for me. When it's like, no, you shouldn't have to do that. This is your home. So yes, this was absolutely necessary, and no, you are not the jerk. Because Tasha sounds like bad news, and I don't blame you for shutting her out. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled mom and daughter demand that I move out of my workspace at a library, as they claim they always sit where I'm at and they want it way more than I do. But thankfully, the librarian came in clutch and shut this lady down, leaving me incredibly confused at how entitled this Karen truly was. Here's what happened. So this happened a few days ago at my local library. I usually go there to get some work done because it's quieter than home and the Wi-Fi is pretty decent. I had just sat down at one of the public computers, literally 10 minutes in, when this woman walks up with her daughter. Now her daughter looks to be about 17 years old. I noticed them kind of hovering behind me, but I figured that they were just waiting for a computer nearby to free up. Then the mom taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hi, how long are you gonna be?" I say to her, "Well, I'll probably be a while. I mean, I just got here. There are a bunch of other computers though that are open." Well, she looks at the other ones and just scoffs. She says to me, "Yeah, but my daughter likes this one. She always uses this one. Can't you just move?" And when she said that, I was honestly super confused. I told her no, I already logged in and started working, and it's also first come, first serve. She then hits me with the dumbest thing I've ever heard. "You're an adult. You can work anywhere. She is a child." And I almost laughed because first off, she is not a little kid. I told her again that I'm not moving, and I suggested that she speak to a librarian if she has an issue. And you know what? She actually did. She walks off muttering something and gets a librarian. The librarian walks over, asks me if everything's all right, and I explain what happened. Then the librarian turns to the mom and says, "Ma'am, this isn't a restaurant. You don't get to request your favorite table." The look on the mom's face was absolutely priceless. She mumbled something about rude people and ended up using another computer like 3 seats down. Same model, same everything. Just not this special one, I guess. I'm genuinely wondering if I missed a memo where having a kid means you own public spaces now, because this incident was incredibly confusing. Yeah, this would not only be confusing, but also like really piss me off, because seriously, there are other computers you can go to, but you're bothering me? Like, get a life, go somewhere else and bother some other person. Because I know if I was in this situation, I would be very pissed off. My mom puts my dad in his place after a rude comment and a long few days, leaving him alone to take care of all the kids, teaching him a lesson in the process that he will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so my dad worked long-haul trucking when I was little, while my mom worked part-time from home so she could raise us kids. This occurred when I was maybe 4 years old at the time, and my sister had just started walking during the early 2000s. Now, I know all of this because my mom brings it up anytime she's pissed off at dad if he slacks on parenting duties, with mostly those occasions being unintentional on his part. So basically, dad comes in from days in the truck, sees my mom half passed out on the couch as she had been fighting a cold the past few days prior, sees me watching TV while my sister waddled up to him with her diaper sagging. Now he, being tired himself, blurted out, "Geez, woman, you couldn't change her?" All while trying to step around my sister. Now, according to my mom, she just got up, looked him dead in the eyes and said, "You're in charge of the girls now," and then locked herself in their bathroom. Now, dad of course made a small stink about it, but he did change my sister and then tried to get the TV remote away so that he could watch something. Well, me being the little jerk that I I was as a kid, told him, "Mommy said I get the TV today because I read a whole book." Basically meaning that I wasn't going to give him the TV remote. So my dad stormed off to confront Mom, as the only other TV was in their room. Mom told him I was right and to just tough it out through the door. Well, my dad had to sit with me and my sister while Dora played on the TV for the next 2 hours. And yes, it was a marathon day, so there was a lot of it. He knew that if he took the remote away from me when I was rewarded, it would backfire on him completely. And trust me, that's another long story in and of itself. Then, my mom wouldn't come out at dinner time, so Dad had to make dinner himself. But I was picky, as I had undiagnosed autism at the time, and I had a meltdown over what he made. Dad pleaded to Mom to please come out and help, but Mom told him to man up and deal with it himself. My dad ended up just giving me cereal because I refused to eat whatever he cooked, and Dad knew that if he withheld dinner from me, Mom would literally sick his parents on him, especially my grandma, who is terrifying. I mean, she even scolded my dad in front of us for not playing with us when we asked. He then also had to make my school lunch for tomorrow and then get his kids to bed. My mom, meanwhile, kept him locked out of their room for the next 36 hours, using their ensuite and having him bring her meals, namely dinner and then breakfast. Dad had to sleep on the couch, deal with my bedtime tantrums, and the next morning my before-school meltdown, pack my bag, dress me, and then walk me to school, all while dealing with my barely year-old sister, who would get into everything and was just super fussy at the worst of times. According to Mom, after Dad picked me up from school at the end of the day, she finally came out all rested, took one look at my disheveled, sleep-deprived father, and said to him, "You really couldn't keep them calm?" Well, Dad never ever made even a single comment like that ever again. Oh, and Mom still tattled on Dad, so Grandma gave him a verbal whooping that weekend when we visited her and Grandpa. Then my grandma made my dad do all the house chores, while she, my grandpa, and my mom sat and played with my sister and I, marking this as a moment that I'm sure my father has never forgotten. Oh man, this is really funny. I'm sure that dad immediately regretted his decision to make that comment, because this really does sound like an absolute nightmare. A group of entitled parents at a public park try to have their kids ride the back of my dog while we are sitting in a picnic area, resulting in one of the most confusing and irritating situations I've ever had to be in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I took my golden retriever named Max to a local family-friendly festival last Sunday. It had outdoor booths, live music, food trucks, and kids everywhere. Now for this, I kept him leashed the entire time. He is calm, trained, and used to crowds, so he was just happily trotting beside me, soaking up pets from strangers and stealing attention like a pro. At one point, while we were resting near a shaded picnic area, a group of kids ran over and started fawning over him, which was fine, it happens all the time. Max sat patiently with his tail wagging. Then their parents showed up, but instead of pulling the kids back, or thanking me for letting them pet the dog, they started positioning one of the kids like he was about to sit on Max, with one leg lifted like he was about to mount a pony. And at this point, Max stood up, visibly confused, and started backing away. I then gently repositioned him and I moved between them. And when I did that, the parents were visibly annoyed. One of them even pointed at Max like he was some kind of prop. No asking, no eye contact, just an unspoken expectation that their children were entitled to use my living, breathing pet as a ride. When they realized I wasn't going along with it, they stormed off with one of the kids whining, one of the adults muttering something under their breath, and shooting glares back at me like I had ruined their family outing, which honestly is completely baffling. Wow, those parents are not good parents, because that could have really hurt the dog. Seriously, you should not be riding dogs like that. That's incredibly bad for their back, especially a dog that you don't know. Like sure, Max is sitting there wagging his tail, but who's to say the second you don't put your kid on its back, it's not going to turn around and start biting people? Like what an irresponsible, stupid thing to do. Not to mention just blatantly disrespectful to the owner of the dog. So good for you for protecting your dog. This really could have ended badly, because these parents sound incredibly inconsiderate. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit, and if you would like to submit your own stories, check out the link in the description. We would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for secretly investigating my sister after her husband accused her of cheating? Because right now everything's blown up in my face and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. A few weeks ago, my brother-in-law, who I will call Rob for the sake of the story, came to me and confessed that he thought my sister, who we will call Emily, was cheating on him. For context, Rob and I are good friends and talk regularly at family events and gatherings. He is an only child, but we've known each other long enough that he sees me as a sister. I've never known Emily to cheat on anyone, let alone her husband of 5 years, so at first I was skeptical of Rob's claim. However, Rob told me that Emily had been acting distant, reserved, and all these other things, and would evade the topic whenever he asked about it. I asked Emily if she was feeling alright, and she said that she was fine. Well, I told Rob this, and he asked if I could dig deeper to see if there was truly something going on. This threw me off further, since it seemed like he was just looking for dirt on Emily to justify something that he had done. So I told him to try being more firm in talking with Emily. The next day, Emily calls me in tears and tells me Rob accused her of cheating and that she's devastated. She thought he accused her to hide his own cheating, so she made him give over his phone to her so that she could go through it, but she found nothing. It was at this point that I began to suspect something. At first, I had the same suspicion my sister had, but if she didn't find anything, then what Rob said began to make more sense. So over the next week, I started paying more attention to where my sister was going. We both live on the main road of a small town, and she drives a very distinct vehicle. I started watching to see when she'd pass by each day, as well as asked Rob to see where she said she was going. After a few days, I saw Emily driving by when the gym she told Rob she was visiting was the opposite direction. She came back 2 hours later and clearly never visited the gym. At this point, I had reason to believe Emily did really cheat, and Rob seemed completely innocent. The next time I visited Emily, I asked to use her laptop to do some shopping, and she just let me have it. Well, it turns out she saved her passwords to everything on there, so I could sign in as her. It took me 10 minutes to find messages to a guy on Snapchat where they literally agreed to meet up. The messages really weren't flirty, and they hadn't shared any pictures, but she had agreed to meet a man in secret, which was enough for Rob to confront her. Once again, I receive a call from my sister screaming at me that I violated her privacy and I broke her trust, and what I found was just chatting with a coworker and not cheating. She then accused me of trying to steal Rob and basically said I was a terrible person for trying to ruin her life. I don't know what all her and Rob have said to each other, but it definitely cannot be pretty either. So am I the jerk for getting involved in this? Because right now I'm not sure what to do. Okay, this might go against like anything I've ever said on this channel, but yeah, I do think you're the jerk here. Why on earth did you get involved in this situation? Like seriously, what a nightmare. This doesn't sound like something anyone should get between. This is something that Emily and Rob need to figure out. And yeah, unfortunately, Emily's completely right. You invaded her privacy by going into her laptop and looking through everything. That's not fair for Emily, even if she is cheating. Like sure, you think you found something of them meeting up, but she's like, no, that wasn't cheating. That's literally a coworker. And unless you have some irrefutable evidence to be like, oh no, you were gonna cheat, then what you found is pretty innocuous and probably nothing. And now you're involved in something that definitely should not involve you in the first place. So yes, in this situation, I definitely think you're the jerk. Did I overreact for walking out when my sister-in-laws tried to put a $400 surprise birthday cake on my card at a dinner I organized, basically implying that I'll pay for it without even asking me first? Because right now my entire family is pissed off and I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been married for 12 years to a brilliant wife who is the one that keeps me sane enough to survive things like family dinners. For a bit of background, my family calls me the restaurant guy because I can monologue about favorite dishes of mine that are long gone. So it was no shock that my sister-in-law asked me to book a place for my brother Dan's 40th birthday that could handle a big crowd. So I used a typical reservation site, I tossed in my card to lock the table down, and picked a well-known LA spot that has old school vibes with a huge Scottish list. And I figured that we would split the bill like always. Well, the day comes around last Saturday, and dinner's rolling, prime rib and cocktails are everywhere, but at that moment the lights dim and a 3-tier cake with Dan's name shows up on the table. We do the thing, and not even 10 minutes later, the manager thanks me for prepaying and hands me a bill for $400 plus an automatic tip, saying that my sister-in-law told him to go big and to put it on the card used for the reservation. But thankfully it was denied because they can't do that. And this is literally the first I've ever heard of it. I could tell he knew I was genuinely flabbergasted by hearing this. I told the manager the cake wasn't on me, had him reverse the charge, and he did that with no questions asked. I then wished Dan happy birthday and then I headed home. So now all of Sunday and this past week, even on the holiday, the family chat is going crazy and all, but saying that I ruined the night and made everyone scramble to cover dessert, which apparently was an expense they weren't prepared for. And yes, I will say that I've done pretty well in this world thanks to my portfolio, but I do not want to be taken advantage of. Like that really is incredibly rude. Frankly, I would have covered the whole meal without issues, but there's something off about trying to stick a fancy cake on my card without asking. It really just feels shady. It's not going to change the way some of my family feel, but I'm posting here for a little validation, and that it might just help me feel like I'm not taking one of those crazy pills here. So seriously, am I overreacting, or did she indeed push it too far? What should I do? Holy crap, $400 for a cake? If someone sprung that on me and said, okay, we're gonna cover it with a card on file, I would be like, wait a second, that's not happening, that's my card, and no, we're not doing that. Like, that's an insane thing to throw on you all of a sudden, regardless of if you have money or not. So no, you're definitely not overreacting. This is incredibly rude, and I absolutely agree with the original poster. It is shady at best, because if they were truly not prepared to pay for it, then they should not have ordered it in the first place. Am I the jerk for wanting to kick my brother out of my house, as he has only been able to pay rent rent consistently for maybe 2 months, because right now I'm getting a lot of guilt trip from my family and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 27-year-old female and I live with my parents and my younger brother who is 25. Since graduating high school, my brother hasn't been able to keep a job for more than a year. He lives rent-free and my parents cover all of his expenses, including his car and insurance. And I've always been frustrated with how much they baby him. Things got worse when my dad lost his job after a serious accident that caused him to lose an eye. Ever since then, I've been covering almost all the household expenses. I told my brother if he wanted to live under my roof, he had to start paying rent. Well, he agreed, but only managed 2 months worth of it, after constant reminders. And then he quit his job and stopped paying rent altogether. Now, we had an agreement. If he couldn't keep paying rent consistently, he would have to either join the military or move out. Back in March, he told me he was working with a Navy recruiter and just needed time to detox from some of the substances that he was smoking. I gave him until the end of June to show me a signed military contract, but earlier this month, he told me he's no longer enlisting. Instead, he promised to pay rent again and back pay what he owes. At that point, I had had enough. I told him he needed to move out by the end of June, and I was very firm and very clear with him. I don't want him living with me anymore. I love him, but he needs to grow up and take responsibility for his life. And now my parents are upset with me. They say I'm being heartless, that he won't survive on his own. My mom even said that if something happened to him, she wouldn't want to live. I love my mom deeply, but when she says things like that, it feels incredibly manipulative and guilt-inducing. She says we're a small family and we need to stick together, but I feel stuck. I'd move out if I could, but I'm worried about leaving my parents behind in all of this mess. My brother also complained that I charged him way too much for rent, but I only asked for what the local market would charge for a room and nothing more. Every time I bring up my concerns, my parents say that they'll talk to him, but nothing ever changes. And I'm left feeling drained, unsupported, and angry in my own home. I hate that it's come to this, but I honestly don't want him near me anymore. I don't want to fight, but I am ready to stand my ground. This situation is wrecking my mental health, and I seriously just need to hear from people who don't know me because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, the fact that he's not paying rent is more than enough reason to be like, okay, you've got to go. Like, I don't think him joining the military or not is something you can really enforce. Like, that's kind of crazy, but you can absolutely enforce whether or not he lives there, especially if you have say over the household. And if this guy's not carrying his weight by paying rent, then sorry, you gotta go. This is the deal we had and you broke it, so now you've gotta leave. And sure, this is a close family and this is all you have, but also it kind of seems like he's taking advantage of this situation and not actually trying to make anything work. So no, you would not be the jerk for kicking him out because I think this might be the best thing for him. I left my ex years ago, but in the process, I also took out his PlayStation and his PlayStation account, making this one of the pettiest revenges I've ever done in my life. Here's how I did it. Okay, so this happened almost 10 years ago, but it is still one of my pettiest victories to this day. Back when I was 19 years old, I left my awful ex almost overnight after 4 years of being together. It wasn't a really nasty breakup, but the relationship was the worst I'd ever experienced. Now, I didn't make a scene. I just left and I moved 600 kilometers while he was at work. I was safe and I was fine. Well, one random day a few weeks later, I had received an email confirmation for some PlayStation game, and I didn't own a PlayStation and was actually confused for a few seconds. That is until it hit me. He had used my email address for his account. I had no idea for how long, but I knew it wouldn't continue. At the bottom of the email, it was something asking, well, if this wasn't you, then click here. And you know what? I absolutely did. 2 clicks later, they thanked me for letting them know of this possible fraud and had blocked everything they had to do with this account I had no idea about. Now, I had blocked my ex, but I kind of got a hint that he was not amused at all when his best friend wrote me a really nice message saying that everything he ever bought, which was a lot, is gone, and all his progress in any game got deleted, and he would need to verify his ID and PlayStation in order to get a new account. And what a terrible human being I am. And you know what? I still smile every time I think about it because this ex absolutely deserved the trouble. Oh man, this is really funny because I can see this being a massive nuisance to probably anybody. If my account got banned for Steam or something like that, especially in such a small way, I would go crazy because I don't know about you, but if you're like me, you probably have a ton of games on Steam. So not having access to that would be oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me right now. I would go crazy having to deal with that. And I'm sure this guy had the same experience with his PlayStation, but it seems like he deserved it. So good for the original poster. My entitled neighbor slams his door every morning at 5 o'clock as hard as he possibly can, waking me up out of a dead sleep and ruining my morning. But after I tried to ask him to please keep it down, he blew me off in a way that really pissed me off. So I decided to get some revenge by playing the piano as loud as possible nearly at midnight every single night, just to show him how frustrating it is to have noisy neighbors. Here's how I did it. So I live in an apartment where the walls are thin enough to hear someone sneeze 2 units down. So, like, basic noise courtesy kind of matters. Most people get that, but not my next door neighbor. For some reason, he thinks doors are meant to be slammed and not closed. Not gently pulled shut, but full body thrown like he's mad at it. And he does this every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. No exaggeration. It's how I wake up most weekdays now. Sometimes he slams it twice because he forgets his phone or whatever. So bonus round for me, I guess. One morning I ran into him and I asked him if he could please just maybe be a little quieter with the door. And I really kept this light and I was not rude about this at all. Well, when I said that, he just laughed at me and said, "It's just a door, relax." And then he walked off. So I thought to myself, okay then, I guess it's time for me to get some petty revenge. That night, I decided if he likes noise so much, then I absolutely could contribute as well. I dragged out my old electric keyboard, I plugged it in, and I picked the loudest, most obnoxious organ setting I could find. At around 11 o'clock p.m., when everything's super quiet, I sat down and started playing chopsticks like a kid at their first piano lesson. I didn't do it well, and it definitely was not rhythmically correct, and I definitely did not do this for a short amount of time, because I did this for 3 nights in a row. Well, on the 4th morning, the 5 a.m. door slam never came. It's been over a week now, and I've had peaceful mornings with no slamming, no passive-aggressive notes, and instead just pure silence. So yeah, I guess sometimes you really do have to fight noise with noise. And hey, maybe I'll get good at the piano again while I'm at it. Yeah, this is one of those situations where it's like, yeah, you need to fight noise with noise. I love the fact that you got back at this guy in such a fun way. And by the way, it is not just a door. You're literally slamming that at 5 in the morning. Like, why are you slamming anything at 5 in the morning, dude? People are still asleep. And sure, someone's gonna be like, oh, I get up at 3 in the morning. It's no big deal for me. But for the rest of us, no, that's not a normal time to get up. So the fact that he was so flippantly slamming his door is so obnoxious. But in that same vein of thought, I love the way that you handle this, because this guy sounds like he absolutely needed an attitude adjustment, especially with how he dismissed your concerns almost immediately. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend's entire family hates my guts, and after dealing with their snide remarks and awful passive-aggressive comments towards me, I decided to put my foot down and block all of them on social media, resulting in them freaking out and me wondering if I went too far, because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So my girlfriend and I have been together for about 2 years now. We recently moved in together after a long stretch of saving and planning. Everything between us is solid, but her family is an entirely different story. They have never liked me. From the start, they made passive-aggressive comments, criticized everything from my job to how I dress, and treated me like some outsider trying to steal her. She always defended me, but it just never stopped. Last month, she got a big promotion, and I was proud of her, and I posted a picture of us celebrating. And that's when the messages started flooding in. Her sister said I was mooching off her success. Her uncle joked that I should be grateful someone like her settled. Her mom sent a long text message saying that she was worried I'd drag her down. But you know what? I didn't respond to any of it. But after a week of nonstop text messages, calls, and snide comments on social media, I had simply had enough, and I blocked every single one of them. But now they're saying that I'm isolating her. She doesn't blame me at all, but part of me wonders, was that going way too far? Or was I just protecting my peace? So am I the jerk in this situation, or is there something else I should have done? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, these people are idiots. How on earth are you isolating anyone from anything? These people have been attacking you since day one for no good reason. Like, that's the main thing here. You literally are just trying to support your girlfriend, and they're trying to be like, oh yeah, you're just gonna drag her down. You better be lucky that she settled for you. And it's like, dude, I don't know what you want. I literally don't know how to make you happy. So if I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing. I would have blocked them and moved on and explained to my girlfriend why I'm doing that. Because their toxic comments are not something you should ever have to deal with. And I honestly don't blame you in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not letting my friend borrow one of my designer dresses for a wedding after she called me shallow for even buying them in the first place? Here's what's going on. I'm a 26-year-old female, I have a stable job, I have no kids, and sometimes I like to treat myself. I've saved up for a few designer dresses over the years, and this is nothing outrageous, just a handful of nice pieces I wear to special events. I'm careful with them, and they mean a lot to me because they're things I actually worked hard for. Now, one of my close friends, who we will call Lena, is 27 years old and has always made snide comments about my clothing. Stuff like, oh, I don't get how you can spend that much on fabric. I could never be that shallow. Now, I usually just kind of laugh it off, but honestly, it does get under my skin. She clearly thinks I'm materialistic, even though I've never judged her lifestyle or spending habits. Anyways, she's going to a wedding soon and texted me out of the blue, asking to borrow one of my dresses. No apology, no acknowledgement of the past comments, just her saying, you have so many, I figured you wouldn't mind. mind. Well, I just politely said no, explaining I don't lend them out, especially for trips where I won't be there. And when I said that, she snapped back that I was being selfish and dramatic. And now a few mutual friends are chiming in saying, oh, it's just a dress. But I can't help but feel that it's more than that. I mean, why should she benefit from something she's constantly belittled me for? So seriously, am I the jerk here for not allowing this to go to my friend? Because I'm still incredibly pissed off about this. No, you're not the jerk at all. Your friend sucks. She can't sit there and be like, oh wow, these things suck. You're super shallow for buying them. And then in the same sentence be like, by the way, I want to borrow one of them. It's like, okay, wait a second. It's either one way or the other. You can't have it both ways. This isn't fair at all. Either these are really shallow dresses and you hate them, or you want them and you're just jealous of her. Like, she's being so hypocritical. This is like so awful. So no, you're not the jerk and all of your friends are completely wrong, because this is something you worked for and you are under no obligation to give that out to anybody, especially someone who talked down to you in the way that your friend did. Am I overreacting for refusing to cook for my fiance after he told his family that I don't bring anything to the table in our relationship? Here's what's going on. I'm a 26-year-old female and I live with my 28-year-old fiance, and we've been engaged for about 5 months now. I work remotely as a copy editor and also take care of most things around the house, namely cooking, cleaning, managing bills, stuff like that. He works a 9 to 5 and says he pays most of the rent, even though it's about a 60-40 split. Last weekend, we went to a family dinner at his mom's house, and his brother made a joke about wife duties, and my fiance said something like, well, she's not there yet, still working on bringing something to the table. His dad then laughed and his mom gave me that pity smile, as if to say, oh, you'll get there one day. And when I heard this, I was completely stunned. I didn't say anything, but I stewed the whole ride home. That night, I didn't cook dinner, and the next day, I didn't make breakfast or lunch like I usually do. Well, he noticed immediately and asked what was wrong, and I just told him I didn't feel like contributing to a table I apparently didn't bring anything to. When I said this, he got defensive, said it was just a joke, and accused me of punishing him. He even said that I was being manipulative, but I haven't been able to get over how casually he said that in front of people who already don't seem to think highly of me. So am I overreacting for going radio silent on the cooking and cleaning until he apologizes? Because right now I'm incredibly upset. Okay, dude, this is so messed up it's not even funny. Because in my opinion, this is probably exactly what this guy thinks of you. I've got no evidence to back it up, but hear me out. If he's willing to say that so flippantly in front of people that he knows, especially his family, then I'm willing to believe that there's probably some kind of like secret conversation that you're not in on. And I'm not trying to base this on paranoia, but more so just like pattern recognition. Because first of all, it's a big red flag that he's willing to humiliate you like that in front of the family, but also say something so hurtful and condescending so openly. Like, dude, this is awful. Like, that really does suck. Because clearly you do bring stuff to the table. You're taking care of him, you're taking care of the house, you're literally providing value in your relationship. And this guy makes it sound like you don't bring anything to the table. Like, if someone spoke to me like that, I would immediately stop what I'm doing and be rethinking everything. So no, you're not overreacting. This really is a serious matter, because what he said was incredibly hurtful, and I don't blame you for being pissed off. Am I the jerk for telling my dad I felt excluded after his girlfriend didn't invite me to dinner? Because what I just experienced was so awkward, and I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 26-year-old female, and I've been staying at my dad's place for a bit while I look for a new apartment. He lives with his girlfriend who's 36 years old and her 13-year-old daughter. It's been okay lately. However, honestly, it is kind of awkward. I try to stay out of the way, I keep to myself, I always clean up after myself, etc. I've never been super close with his girlfriend, but I've always been polite. Well, the other night, my dad mentioned they were going out to dinner, and they said that I should go with them. He said it might be nice for all of us to spend a little time together and just get out of the house. Now, I agreed, thinking that it would be chill and maybe a good chance to ease some of the weirdness. And while he wasn't coming, as he did have some work stuff, I figured as the one suggesting it, I was genuinely being welcome to join in. Well, we got there and my father's girlfriend told the host, table for two, please, and then turned to me and said something like, oh, I thought you were just tagging along. This is a little celebration for just her. And when she said this, I was kind of stunned. I didn't want to make a scene, so I just said, oh, okay, and then I just walked off. I then ended up getting takeout nearby and just Ubering home. When I got back, my dad asked me how dinner was, and I just said, well, apparently I wasn't invited after all. And now his girlfriend is saying that I overreacted and made her look bad, and my dad is just stuck in the middle. Her daughter also gave me a weird look when they got back, like I had ruined the night or something like that. Now, I don't think I'm entitled to a free meal or anything like that, but I was told I was invited. It just felt really crappy to be treated like an afterthought, especially when my dad said that I should go to this. So am I the jerk here? Because I really don't know what to do. Okay, this really sucks because your dad absolutely needs to step up and defend you. Like, this is so rude, like unbelievably rude. And the fact that she would so flippantly do that in the first place is crazy to me. If you're anything like me, you're probably a reasonable human being, and if someone wants to come along and eat dinner with me, I'm not going to be like, oh, you can't be here. This is not okay. Like, that's just stupid and just really dumb. Because in my opinion, she knew what she was doing. She wanted to disrespect you and make a scene and make you feel awful. Like, nobody's just tagging along to a restaurant without going in. And if I'm being completely honest, it seems like your dad's stuck in the middle because he doesn't want to get involved. He doesn't want to take sides because he doesn't want to piss anybody off. But if you look at this from an outside perspective, you are absolutely not at fault here. So no, you're not the jerk, but your dad's girlfriend and his daughter are absolutely toxic pieces of garbage. Because the fact that they would do this in the first place is so disgusting. Am I the jerk for not hosting my friend's baby shower, all while I'm still recovering from having a baby? Because my friend's calling me selfish and saying that I'm making excuses for not doing this for her. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, to get started, I'm a 30-year-old female and I just had my first baby 6 weeks ago. I knew postpartum would be tough, but I wasn't ready for just how hard it really is. I'm still recovering physically, barely getting any sleep. My hormones are all over the place, and I'm trying to keep up with a newborn. My friend, who we will call Sarah, is pregnant and due in a few months, and she asked me to host her baby shower at my place. She said I've got a nice house, I'm good at planning stuff, and since I've already got baby things around, it should apparently be easy. Well, I told her gently that I'm just not up for it right now. I suggested other friends or offered to help pay for a venue, but I really cannot host it myself. And when I said this, she didn't take it well. She said I'm making excuses, saying that it's not that hard, and now she's telling people that I'm being selfish since she threw my bridal shower years ago. I feel super guilty, but I also feel like I need to focus on healing and my baby. So be honest with me, am I the jerk here? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk. Your friend's an idiot. You literally just had a baby and she's trying to be like, oh, you're being so selfish. This is not that hard. And it's like, bro, if it's not that hard, then you do it. Or find someone else because apparently it's so easy. Because this kind of attitude is super toxic. My cousin seems to think that he deserves a cut of my salary every month, all because I got hired after talking about job hunting in his living room. Because right now, this is honestly one of the weirdest situations I've ever been in, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. A few months ago, I visited my cousin for a casual afternoon hangout. I had just moved into my own place in the city, and I was in the middle of job hunting. And this hangout was nothing serious. We were just catching up and talking about where life was heading. While I was there, one of his friends came over and he seemed really cool. The three of us then ended up talking about careers and choices and timing, you know, just the typical adult catch-up stuff. And I happened to mention I was looking for roles in a specific industry. It wasn't a pitch or a request, just part of the flow of the conversation. Well, apparently that friend remembered, because a few days later, he reached out and said he might be able to connect me with someone hiring. I followed up, I sent my resume, and I went through the standard hiring process that is interviews, reference checks, the usual. And a few weeks later, I got the job. It was a great opportunity and I was so thankful he helped connect me. Now, my cousin said congrats at first, but soon enough, he started acting strange. He began saying things like the job only happened because I was at his house when the conversation happened to take place. And it's then that he started hinting that he deserves something from it. And it got to a point where he was bluntly suggesting like a small cut of my salary every month. But then one day he actually sent me his bank details and said that I should send him some money regularly since the connection came through his house. Now, I never replied, but then I started hearing about the awful things he's been saying behind my back to literally my relatives and even mutual friends. It still blows my mind that someone thinks they deserve money just because I talked about my goals in their living room. Because right now I feel completely blown away and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, this cousin is a money-hungry piece of garbage. Dude, who in their right mind would do this to someone in their family? So you're telling me that just because the original poster got a job, all because they talked to the right person who helped them then talk to the other right person, somehow means they're entitled to their paycheck? Like, what's happening? Like, this is the worst attempt at a shakedown I've ever seen in my life. Like, just because something good happened to someone else doesn't mean that you get a cut of whatever they're making. Like, dude, what's going on right now? So yeah, your cousin sucks, and honestly, I would not respond to him probably ever again, because he sounds like a massive weirdo. My entitled coworker demands that I help her out at the drop of a hat, all because I'm single and I don't have any kids. But when I finally refused to do so, she snapped at me in a way that truly showed her true colors, confirming to me that no, I will never help her with anything ever again. Here's how it happened. So my coworker has 2 kids and a full schedule, which I totally get. She's tired, overwhelmed, and always juggling something. But over the last few months, she started expecting me to help her with things outside of work, such as running errands, moving furniture, babysitting, and this is all because, in her words, you don't really have responsibilities like I do. But it's like, I work full-time too. I pay rent, I cook, I clean, I care for my elderly dog, and honestly, I enjoy having weekends just to breathe. But apparently, because I don't have kids, my time is automatically open season. Last week, she told me to help her pack her garage on Saturday, and when I said I had plans, she just rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, it must be nice to have a life with nothing important to do." And you know what? That's when I snapped a little. I told her just because I don't have children doesn't mean my time is worthless, and that her choices don't entitle her to mine. Once I said that, she got quiet, and I now have not heard from her ever since then. And honestly, I'm not sorry for even a second. Yeah, I will never understand people who act this way. Just because someone doesn't have kids doesn't mean you get to boss them around. And I'm talking with work or life or anything. It seems like there's always someone walking into some other single person's life and trying to be like, "Oh, you're single, that means you have no plans. You don't have the responsibilities that I do. That means you have to do whatever I say," thinking that your time is somehow a commodity that they get to steal away from you. So honestly, good for you for putting your foot down and not putting up with this crap, because this kind of behavior is completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for not rearranging a funeral for my cousin after she literally said she was going to be 90 minutes late as she wanted to stop and get something to eat before coming to the funeral for my father? Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old male and my father just passed away. It's just me and my two other brothers and distant relatives. We have more family friends than we do close family, so we try to value the family we do have when we get to see them, and we had his funeral yesterday. Now, our cousin, who's a 24-year-old female, who I will call Karen for the sake of the story, lived with us for much of her life because her mom struggled. She was a single mom in and out of difficult situations. I wouldn't say my dad solely raised her, but he played a big part in it, so they were close. But since she turned 21 or so, she's moved out of state and hasn't really come around much, which honestly is completely fine. She volunteered to make slideshows for the funeral, and I honestly thought that was great. One was going to be right before the eulogy, and the other was going to be right afterwards. Until yesterday, she didn't mention having any scheduling conflicts, but then sprung it on us that she was picking up her mom from the airport in the morning and that she might be late. And it's like, okay, fine, whatever. This just meant that she would maybe miss most of the viewing. But then she starts calling during the viewing saying that they had to eat and would be about 90 minutes late, and asked if we could request pushing things back. And mind you, everything was already in motion. I said that maybe the order of events could be changed, but there was too much going on, and I didn't get the chance to talk to the funeral home, so things proceeded as normal. I stopped answering her text messages, which she assumed meant that things got moved around, but when she eventually arrived towards the end of it, missing, most of everything, she got pissy with me afterwards, saying that I was selfish and that talking to the funeral home could have been quick and easy, and now she and her mom felt robbed. And now she's ranting on social media about her jerk family, and yes, she's talking about me, denying her from being able to see her tributes. And mind you, her tributes are on her stupid computer or CapCut or whatever she used to make them. I stupidly texted her briefly and said I wish it could have worked out, but she just reiterated that I'm a selfish jerk. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because I really don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, this really is infuriating. First and foremost, I'm so sorry that your dad died. That really is awful, and I hope you and your family's doing well, because the way Karen's treating you is completely unfair. Her behavior is cruel, unusual, and very entitled. You mean to tell me that she wants the entire funeral held back, all because she wants to stop and get something to eat? It's like, dude, what are you talking about? That is crazy. You cannot honestly be saying that everybody should hold up what they're doing just so you can grab a snack from a restaurant. Like, what's going on right now? That is so unbelievably selfish, especially considering the context. So for me, and I can only speak for myself, if one of my family members was spreading this kind of garbage online, I would absolutely fight fire with fire. I'm not saying you should do that, but I would absolutely be setting the record straight. I would say equally as loud exactly why they didn't show up on time. And it's because they wanted to eat food and wanted us to wait for them, which is so dumb. Because no, it's not going to be easier just to talk to the funeral venue, because instead the better thing to do is to show up to the funeral on time and just come hungry if you need to. Like seriously, people are mourning the loss of someone and you're thinking about your next meal. So for me, I would shout it from the rooftops and I would be like, oh, we want to get weird? Let's get weird. I'll tell everybody exactly how this actually went down. Because regardless, this kind of behavior is incredibly toxic and you definitely do not deserve this. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. And also, please subscribe to Am I the Genius? I think you're going to love what they're making over there. It's a great channel and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.